do that, I would like to take up an item to consider a resolution of appreciation for our former board member Paul Foster. As you all know, Paul left the board back, I guess, right after our fall board meeting, and became a member of the University of Texas Board of Regents board. So we both congratulate Paul on that selection, but we're obviously very sad to see him leave this board because he was a very valuable member. But in return, we got two excellent new board members. So first, what I'd like to do, although the resolution has been read, I would like a motion to approve that resolution that we read at our October meeting. Excuse me. Motion made by Laurie Bricker. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Lynn Phillips. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Thank you. As a brief reminder this morning, any public member that would like to comment on our college readiness standards, there's a sign-up sheet located near the entrance coming in, and if you'll please sign up. We're going to have a period a little bit later on. We'll allow about 21 minutes for any public comments, about 3 minutes maximum, and we'll take that up a little later in our meeting. One other item, we have a Transfer Success Summit meeting here in Austin, February the 18th and 19th at the Omni Hotel. The summit will serve to encourage institutional presidents, chancellors, and provosts to make transfer a top priority of their institutions and to implement good practices to create a culture of transfer. That summit will begin on the evening of February the 18th with a dinner, and we will hear from both state and national experts on various issues and data relating to student transfer. So we hope all of y'all will be able to be present. Now it's my pleasure, first of all, to introduce Brenda Pavic from Dallas, who's one of our new members. Brenda, we welcome you to the board. I almost forgot this because you really don't seem like a new member. Both Brenda and Bob jumped right in. They've already taken place in all the committee meetings. So to get to the board meeting, this doesn't seem like you're a new member. We know you are, Brenda. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am Brenda Pavich from Dallas, and I would like to say that it is my pleasure to be here and to serve the state in this capacity. This is very important work, and I'm so pleased to be a part of it. Thank you very much.
Brenda. And we also would like to welcome Bob Wingo from El Paso. Bob, pleasure to have you on the board.
Bob, it's a pleasure to be here, and I echo Brenda's sentiments. This is critically important to the future of our state, and we will do all we can to make sure that we are taking the steps that are necessary to make sure that this is of highest importance to us, as it is to all of you here, and we'll do our best to do a great job. Thank you.
Good. Welcome. The next item, or not really item, but announcement I would like to make is we have a new chancellor and president in our midst, and what I would like to do at this point is ask Dr. Renu Couture to please come forward. And with her this morning is, of course, two good friends of ours. One is the chairman of the Board of Regents of the University of Houston, Welcome Wilson. Welcome, come on up. And also a board member and former chairman of their board, Leroy Harmonies.
Chairman Shepard, Vice Chairman Ryder, members of the coordinating board, it is my honor to introduce Dr. Renu Couture, the new Chancellor of the University of Houston System and President of the University of Houston. Dr. Couture comes to us after a 22-year career at the University of South Florida, where she was instrumental as the Provost and Senior Vice President in making the University of South Florida the leading research university in Florida, with research annually exceeding $320 million. Dr. Couture was born in India, where she completed her bachelor's degree in liberal arts. She received her MA and PhD from Purdue University in political science, with a particular training in environmental policy. Her many publications, honors, awards are too numerous to mention in the time we have here today. on behalf of my fellow regent and chairman, welcome Wilson and the other members of the staff of the University of Houston that are here with us today. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Renu Couture.
Thank you, Leroy.
Thank you very much. I appreciate those kind words, and Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I am absolutely honored and feel very privileged to be part of this leadership team. During the course of time period when I was preparing for interview, I went to the website of the coordinating board, and I was very encouraged of what I saw. I really wanted to be part of the state that, number one, acknowledges that there is gap. Secondly, has a plan to close that gap. And thirdly, is doing something about closing that gap. And that was very impressive and encouraging to me, and in making my decision to come and be part of this exciting team here. I was also very impressed with what I saw in terms of accountability measures on the website. I am also very honored, and I feel very proud to be a Cougar now, to be at the University of Houston, the metropolitan flagship university of the state of Texas. I was very impressed with what I saw about the University of Houston, and now that I've been here 11 days, today is my 12th day in Houston, I am even more impressed. It's a great university. We are serving 57,000 students from 130 nations and all across the United States, making an impact, annual impact, economic impact of $3.2 billion, putting in 1 million volunteer hours in the community, building 800 partnerships. I am just absolutely delighted as to what is there already. Out of the 9 measures that are kept track by the top American research universities, University of Houston already is in top 50 on 3 of those 9 measures. You really do have a great asset for the state, and our good days are ahead of us. I'm absolutely determined, and my board very much wants to see that the campus is ready to take this great university and make it even a greater one by focusing on student success as well as on national competitiveness, because I do believe that the 4th largest city in the country and a great state as Texas deserve another great research public university, and that's where we are going. Thank you very much.
You're more than welcome. Mr. Chairman, would you like to offer some remarks?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just have to say that Dr. Couture is exactly, Laura, what the University of Houston needs. At this point in time, we are ready for great things, and Renu Couture is the perfect chancellor, Liz, to implement the things that we've been thinking and talking about for so many years, Bob. So we are delighted to have this educational superstar as chancellor of the University of Houston.
Well, we welcome you on behalf of the coordinating board. We certainly look forward to working with you. We hope you recognize this is a two-way communication. As much as you call on us, we will definitely call on you as well. So, sounds like you've made a great selection. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. If I can just bring attention to a little card that you have on your desk. For my first 100 days, formally, I'm soliciting input from the community, internal, external, everywhere. There's a website at the back side of the card, and requesting input and feedback on what people think University of Houston could and should be in next 5 years. 4 days into launching this website, we have over 300 postings already. Of course, I'll personally hope I can get some personal time to learn more from your wisdom and your vantage point. But anybody in the community has any feelings about what they think University of Houston should be, here is the website, and after 100 days, we're going to set the course, and we'll go there. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item on our agenda this morning, which is the approval of the minutes of our October 25th meeting. Do I have a motion to accept those minutes? Motion made by Mr. Ryder, seconded by Elaine Mendoza. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our next item is the approval of the consent calendar. As you know, those are non-controversial items we think can be approved without comment or discussion, which will allow us time to move on to other issues on our agenda. Does any board member wish to either pull off of or add to the consent calendar? If not, I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the consent calendar. Motion made by Bob Wingle, seconded by Lynn Phillips. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our major policy discussion will come as no surprise to anybody. I know it on the board it won't, and I'm sure that it won't to the staff, and hopefully nobody in the audience. And that is really three things we're going to do this morning. One is the discussion of our college readiness standards. Secondly, we'll have, if there are any public comments, a few periods of public comments. And then thirdly, consideration of the adoption of the committee's recommendation to the board relating to college readiness standards. Over the last 11 months, with both our vertical teams, the staff, and the board, we have worked diligently on our English language arts, math, science, and social science to create a college readiness standard that are before you today. I don't think, as long as I've been on the board, which has been a really long time now, that I've ever seen the board collectively work as hard as they have on an issue like this. Not only have we, under Lynn Phillips' guidance, had committee meetings on this, we've had special committee meetings. The January 15th meeting, the entire board was at the meeting, which I don't think that's ever happened before, Lynn. And I know that there's been a lot of time and effort invested in this. Raymond, I know you've spent an hour or two on it.
Maybe a little more.
So that's somewhat facetious, obviously. One of the things that we were able to do in that period of time and at the last committee meeting was to go ahead and vote on the English portion of it, the math and the science. We held off on the social science part of it for some additional work and study and comments, both by the staff and the board members. That was accomplished yesterday. We had another meeting of Dr. Phillips's committee, at which time the social science portion of the college readiness standards were passed on to come forward to this board. If the board decides to accept them today, then we will move the ball forward with the commissioner. I'm going to have him make some comments on this a little bit later, but it will then go to the commissioner, our commissioner, who will forward it to Robert Scott at the TEA for his approval, and then to the State Board of Education for implementation. We have our research person here, Evie Hyatt, who you all now know extremely well, who's the director for college readiness. And if any board member has any question of Evie this morning before we continue, she'll be happy to answer any. Evie, I know that there are a couple of items on the recommendations that you shared with me this morning that I would like for you to touch on, and then any other questions the board might have. Good morning.
Good morning. This board is really considering a very bold move in adopting the college readiness standards. They are going to increase expectations for students and for teachers and faculty in Texas. It was very clear at the AER committee last week that this board was concerned not just about the rigor and the challenge involved in the standards, but also in the implementation process, ensuring that there was going to be full implementation of the standards. And the AER committee recommended or approved three recommendations that will support implementation of the standards. And these were handed out to you this morning. You have these on a separate sheet. The first first recommendation directs sports staff and the public institutions of higher education to prepare for full implementation of these standards by fall of 2012. This will include a commitment on the part of the board to work closely with the P16 councils, with faculty groups, and to offer other opportunities to increase awareness of the college readiness standards and their implications to the core curriculum, to curriculum alignment with public and higher education, and to the students who will be most affected by the standards in 2012. The second recommendation directs board staff to align current assessment instruments used to measure college readiness under the Texas Success Initiative. This will begin with an analysis of our current TSI assessment instruments to determine how closely they align to our college readiness standards. Currently, TSI focuses, as you know, on English and mathematics. Our standards and the new end-of-course assessments are going to cover English, mathematics, science, and social studies. So after a staff review, we'll be reporting to you about the relationship between current TSI assessments and the college readiness standards and recommend any possible modifications. Finally, the third recommendation directs board staff to pilot new options for students who are not college ready. We recognize that these are challenging standards that are designed to enable all Texas students to succeed in both in post-secondary education and in careers, and that it will take time to fully implement them. The College Board will work closely with the Texas Education Agency and with staff and faculty from institutions of higher education to assist students in not only becoming college ready, but in completing post-secondary opportunities with either a certificate or degree. We've told you, and you are well aware, that the college readiness standards are only a beginning, and if approved, we will be reporting to you on our progress in working with other agencies, with P16 councils, public and higher education, business and civic organizations, and the general public to assure full implementation and readiness for the higher standards that are being proposed today.
Any questions or comments on the board? Thank you, Abby. A couple of other things that I want to mention. First of all, I have to thank the 4 co-chairs of the vertical teams who did yeoman's work, not only in the fall but over the holidays. I'm not sure if any of them are here this morning because I can't see everybody, but Linda Ferrer-Buckley with the English language arts vertical team, Pat Patterson with the science vertical teams, Selena Vasquez Morales with the mathematics vertical team, and Jonathan Lee with the social science vertical teams.
They're hidden back.
Oh, they're hidden behind the... Okay. Thank you all very much for all of your... We also want to thank our colleagues at the PEA and the Commission for College Ready Texas that offered tremendous input into this. I guess we did such a good job through this process. It's my understanding there is nobody that has signed up for public comment. And I've said this a number of times, I'm going to have to say it again. It was an open process. Within the first couple of days when we posted this on our website, we had over 50,000 downloads of the standards. We just pretty well shocked all of us. Now, you have to understand that's not all in Texas because the whole country is looking at us as we go through this process. The other thing that I found out in the fall, the commissioner called me one day and he said, "Bob, I just want to let you know, I was meeting with a group of educators and there was a question about how the process was going to work and where the information was going to end up. And I gave him your phone number and email address." Of course, that came as quite a shock to me at first. Having said all that, I ended up with 2 comments, and that was it. But Raymond, to you and your staff and the board, Lynn, under your leadership, this has been challenging. I think it's absolutely the right thing to do. It's groundbreaking in a lot of ways. I think we definitely are doing our part to get the ball rolling. Commissioner, I know you have a few comments you'd like to make.
Yes, thank you very much. I would just like to summarize a bit of the process. not only to remind the board about what this process has been like, but also so that people in the audience and those that are listening in will know about how we came to this point, and also because if we're going to do this properly, we're going to need the support and the involvement of educational and public leaders all over the state to implement, to roll out these college readiness standards so that they can really help our youngsters and really help our institutions of higher education do the best job possible. The development of the college readiness standards was called for in a piece of legislation that was passed in the special session of 2006. And it came out of a recognition that families all over the state, students all over the state were confused about college readiness. And we had 2 or 3 different indicators for college readiness. Some were nothing more or no more informational than a cut score on a standardized test, but without really providing content about what college readiness really meant. That was one consideration in passing the legislation that ultimately called on the coordinating board to initiate the process of college readiness. The second thing that was a factor was the recognition that if you look at the performance of Texas high school students, our standards for on the tax test by other measures were well below the national average, and also well below the level necessary to enable our students to graduate from high school, go on to college, go into the workforce, and compete at both the national and international level. And so in that context, this legislation was passed, which I think House Bill 1 is a visionary piece of legislation, in which more important than anything else it does, it tells the people of Texas, we expect much more of our young people, we expect much more of our students, because we believe in their ability to achieve at a very high level. And I think that was an important message to send to all the people of Texas. It doesn't matter whether a youngster is in a rural district or an urban district. It doesn't matter whether the youngster is affluent or poor. It doesn't matter what race or ethnicity the student is. We believe in our young people, and we're going to expect high standards of them. The other thing that was important about this piece of legislation is it recognized something that we haven't actually implemented historically in Texas as well as we should have, and that is that the recognition that college readiness is established, for better or worse, by faculty who teach entry-level courses in our colleges and universities. They're the ones that determine what college readiness is. And what we needed to do was to align college readiness standards with those kinds of expectations. And one of the things that House Bill 1 did was to call for the formation of these vertical teams and have a 60-40 split. 60% of the members of vertical teams were from higher education, and 40 were from public education. And that was a recognition that the preponderance of establishing the standard should be directed by faculty, by teachers, distinguished teachers from the higher education realm, along with teachers from public education. The vertical teams worked very hard. They did not work in a vacuum. They benchmarked their work against college readiness standards that had been prepared by other organizations, by other states, the College Board, Massachusetts, the American Diploma Project, so that we wanted to come up with standards that represented the best thinking about this issue in the country. We appointed a consultant on the project, Professor Dave Conley from the University of Oregon, who is considered a national expert on this issue, and who captured the attention of people here at the coordinating board with the publication of his recent book, College Knowledge, which we thought was an extraordinarily insightful and useful approach to the issue of college readiness. We worked very closely with the Commission for a College-Ready Texas. We shared the draft standards with them and made sure that what they were doing was very much aligned with what the vertical teams were doing. There was no pride of ownership. There were a number of occasions when the work that the Commission was doing we found to be even stronger than the work that the vertical teams had done, and so we very quickly embraced the work that they had done. We've worked closely with the State Board of Education and the Commissioner of Education. I made several presentations to the State Board of Education urging them to comment on the drafts of the standards as they were prepared. As Chairman Shepard said, we posted the standards on our website. We had, as he pointed out, thousands of downloads, and we had approximately somewhere over 1,000 comments. It's important to point out that most of the standards, the English language arts, the science, and the math standards received a favorable rating from over 90% of the people who posted comments on the websites. And as you know, the people that are likely to post comments are those who are likely to be critical of the work. That was not the case. We received some very thoughtful comments from university faculty. I particularly recall the chairman of the history department at the University of Texas El Paso, who sent in several pages of very thoughtful comments, and we revised our social studies standards accordingly. There were school districts that apparently had met together in leadership teams, had gone over the standards as a group, and they made comments, and we took those into account as well. And we are very appreciative of the thoughtfulness that many educators around the state put into their comments. I think it's not surprising that we didn't receive any requests to make public comments this morning, because I think it speaks to the thoroughness and the openness of the process. Your vote today is simply the beginning of a long process. We've got an enormous amount of work to do. I think we've established in the early stages of this work, established a new level of cooperation between public education and higher education. We're going to build on that. We're going to continue to work very closely with the Texas Education Agency and the Commissioner of Education. We spoke yesterday, and we committed to working very closely together with the State Board of Education and going to the districts of the members of the State Board of Education to talk about the standards and make sure that educators and public leaders all over the state understand why these standards are so important and why it's so important that we provide our students in Texas resources necessary to live up to these standards. I'm very excited about the process. It's a very large first step, but there's much work to be done ahead of us.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well, let's move on to that item on the agenda then, item 4C. The Chair would entertain a motion to approve the college readiness standards as recommended by the AER committee.
So moved.
And to...
Oh, you want to get it all out?
And to authorize Commissioner Paredes to make non-substantive changes to the standards prior to transmitting them to the Commissioner of Education. Motion made by Elaine Mendoza.
Yes.
Second. Seconded by Fred Eldenfels. Any further discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. There are a couple of items that we need to add to this that Eddie passed out this morning. You have a sheet under the recommendations, and what I need then, let me take these in order. First one is a recommendation to direct the staff and the public institutions of higher ed to prepare for the full implementation of these standards by the fall of 2012. I'd entertain a motion for the approval of that motion. A motion made by Lynn Phillips, seconded by Laurie Bricker. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
By the same sign. Motion carries. Recommendation 2 is direct the staff to align current assessment instruments used to measure college readiness under the Texas Success Initiative for implementation by 2012. May I have a motion on that? Motion made by Laurie Bricker, seconded by Bob Wingo. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
By the same sign. The last recommendation is to direct the board staff to pilot new options for students who are not college ready.
So moved.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Mendoza, seconded by Mr. Hilton Fells. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
By the same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, as a
Yes,
just
sir.
a brief follow-up, not an action item or part of any of the motions, but I would encourage us as we implement these recommendations and these standards to consider, as part of that implementation, trying to develop and roll out a parent's guide. I think if parents, the consumers of our public education system, understand the impact these standards will have in a simple, concise format, that will only help the momentum of the school districts in the process of adopting these into the curriculum and into the culture of our education system.
That's a great suggestion. In fact, the commissioner had mentioned that yesterday, and I think that is a very important thing for us to do. Good point. Yeah. Moving on, the next item on our agenda, item 5, is recognition of excellence. The recognition of excellence is a new item on our board agenda. It's something that we hope we will be able to have at every one of our meetings. Today, we recognize the exemplary work of Dr. Rosemary Carr of Collin County Community College District. Professor Carr, Professor, please come on up this morning. Welcome. I'm going to say a few more nice things about you, though. As I mentioned, today we recognize Dr. Rosemary Carr of Collin County Community College. Professor Carr has been named the nation's best community college professor as she recently accepted the U.S. Professor of the Year Award, sponsored by the Council for Advancement and Support of Education, the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching. First of all, congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Dr. Carr is a state and national leader in developmental mathematics education and the first community college mathematics professor to ever be selected, which also, I think, is a tremendous tribute to you. Her work to improve academic success under our prepared students go a long way towards closing the gaps in Texas and better prepare our students for their paths towards higher education. We're pleased to have Dr. Carr here today with us today and certainly look forward to her remarks in this area. Doctor, welcome.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board for giving me the opportunity to share a few thoughts regarding the learning process in developmental education. I've been teaching at Collin College for 18 years. I did have the opportunity to teach in high school for a few years, and I was tenured faculty at Eastern Kentucky University. So I think I bring a unique perspective in the fact that I have taught at the high school level, the community college level, and at the university level. So what I have to offer, I hope, will be of some benefit. My vision for developmental education is to achieve academic excellence through an integrated instructional approach that engages a student's cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domains. I'm always concerned when people would never say, I cannot read or write, but it's socially acceptable to say, I cannot do mathematics. People would even joke about that. And so that has always been one of my concerns. I try to help students to think logically through their problems and encourage them to question why mathematics works as it does. And I think that does alleviate their fear. In addition, when I'm teaching, I tell the students math or algebra is not a set of rules just used to torture algebra students, but that it really is a set of rules to describe patterns that are happening in the real world and movement that is out in the real world. And I think one of my favorite quotes is Galileo Galilei said, nature's great book is written in the language of mathematics. And if we help our students to understand that that is what algebra and calculus is about, that we're trying to get them to understand the movement, and that it is the beauty of mathematics, again, I believe we can alleviate their fear. The goals to support my vision include promoting holistic teaching processes that account for the enormous inherent learning variations among our diverse student population. I believe that every student deserves the opportunity to pursue an educational dream and to acquire the necessary knowledge and skills for a successful life. And by increasing these candid discussions of effective instructional processes, we can harness and utilize these best practices. I want you to consider this. Every one of our students is better than us at something, and we need to do what we do well so that they can excel at what they choose to do. The strategies to make this happen, I believe, the most important one is to structure classes, creating a collaborative environment. I think there students can grapple with conceptual ideas and ask questions without trepidation. We need to foster an attitude of success that extends beyond the classroom, and what I mean by that is beyond just being able to work a math problem, that we need to get into the logical thinking that is so important for life skills. We need to measure how well students think through a process rather than solely on how they answer a test question. And we can get at that through formative and summative evaluation techniques. And I think we need to measure success by more than a passing grade. We could do qualitative research rather than just quantitative research, perhaps focus groups, trying to look at the study skills strategies and affective and cognitive changes that occur as they are in the classroom. So again, beyond just the passing grade. When I'm teaching, I do include study skills in my classroom, and so what I wanted to share with you, sometimes what I'm experiencing now is that educators will be talking about the net generation, and there are conference presentations on the net generation and how gamers are inattentive. But if you would look at the slide and the cognitive processing speeds, this is not unique to the net generation. Many students have had the tendency to daydream in our classes. And you can see because there's a huge discrepancy in your rate of thinking versus your rate of speech. And that's why students tend to daydream. You can't speak as quickly as they can think. And I think educators being aware of this discrepancy can do strategies within their classroom to account for those differences. I wanted to share with you today some of the examples at Collin College. I have given conference presentations on these three models, Passport, Bridge, and the Learning Community. I've given hour presentations on each of those. I'm sure you'll be delighted to know I don't intend to do that today. So I'm just going to highlight them very quickly, and then if someone wants additional information on any of those three programs, they could ask me. The Passport program, this is truly has been the passport to success. This is a very unique program. I know of no other school that does that. It's basically a program that is not a linearly mandated trek through a textbook like most of our classes, but instead student learning is predicated on the comprehension of concepts. In other words, they can start the program from their individual current mathematical competency point instead of starting where the curriculum was designed to begin. So we can take the student from where they are and move them forward. What's unique about this, though, is that it is not self-taught. We have teachers in there giving mini lectures on each of the concepts that the students are requesting for the day. So it's a very unique program. Students can complete more than one course level during the semester, again, by just focusing on the topics where they have a weakness. The flexibility in the program, I think if I could only bring one message to the board, it would have to be that I think students need the opportunity to accelerate, and some students are capable of doing that, but I am really concerned with forced acceleration. I don't think you can take the students who are the least prepared and then say, now go learn it a little faster. So trying to get them to finish more than one course in a semester, it should be an opportunity, but it should not be forced acceleration. We have to respond to the differing learning abilities. The passport success, if you look at just the completion rates, that's not all that outstanding. It did increase, and we'll take any increase we can. But I think the best data here has to be the longitudinal data, and I think it's what we need to focus on. Anyway, when I say completion rates in subsequent courses, what we're talking about is we wanted to track them after they got out of passport to see how they're doing in college algebra, statistics, any of the subsequent courses that are truly college coursework. And in this program, we received a 51% increase in success in the higher level courses. So it is truly a passport to success. The next program that I just briefly wanted to address came from the fact that in our institution, College, what do you think the traditional or the age group for the developmental education students? What age group? The majority of students. Do you know what age group they fall in?
28. I'll just throw a number out there.
Yeah, this is kind of amazing. 18 to 22, 75% of our students, recent high school graduates. So it falls right into what you've been discussing with the college readiness standards. 75% of our students, we're not talking the non-traditional coming back. We're talking about recent high school graduates. So we introduced this bridge program, and it is a high school transition program. It was offered 3 weeks right before the fall semester began, and it was for students who had Algebra 2 in high school, successfully completed that, but then when they took the admissions test, they did not pass it, and they were placed into developmental math. So we had this 3-week course trying to accelerate and to be able to get them to place into credit level. Unfortunately, we only had 6 students sign up for the program, and it was free. I think maybe they charged $50, maybe a nominal fee, but it very nominal. We had free textbooks offered for the program, still only had 6 students, and we've been doing all sorts of conversations with high schools, and we're hoping more success this year as the word gets out. But it was truly a transition program. It may be hard for some of you to see the data. Students 2, 4, and 6 all placed when they took the post-test. They did place into college level math. So with just a very quick review, half the students did get to go straight into college level math. And those students were the ones we tracked whether or not they were doing the work we asked them to do outside the class, because as much as you do inside, if they're not doing their work outside, you still have a problem. And students 2, 4, and 6 were the very ones who had come back to class with work completed from the previous day. So we had more than a 20-point increase in the students who were actively participating in the program. And the next program I'd like to discuss is this learning community. I offered a learning community beginning algebra with study skills, applying strategies to get it right. A learning community, there are lots of different programs, linked courses, but in a learning community, 2 teachers team teach. They stay in the same classroom, and they try to integrate the curriculum. And so what we did was match up beginning algebra with the actual study skills course. And the key to success in the learning community is choosing a partner, and that is the difficult part. The good news is I am still speaking to my team teacher because it is tough. Teachers are used to being very autocratic and making their own decisions, and now you're forced to work with someone else. It was actually a great experience the benefits to the learning community are very clear, because you get that collaborative learning environment that I was advocating. I think it is critical. An example of something that we would do in a learning community differently than in a regular class, the study skills teacher would teach note-taking, all of the criteria for how to effectively take notes. I would teach a lesson on math, and I would pause, and she would be walking around making sure they're taking notes, effective notes. And one of the outcomes of this was really for me, because now in my regular class, as I'm teaching, if I say something I think is really profound, I will stop and say, I don't see your pencils moving. That really was kind of important. You might want to write that down. And I think that we need to incorporate study skills in our regular classes as well. But this class definitely allowed us to do that in a full integration. Just very briefly, the outcomes of the learning community. If you look at the retention, which just means we kept the student in the classroom, the retention was actually a little bit lower than I do in a normal beginning algebra class, and the success, meaning whether or not they made an A, B, or C, was about the same rate as well. But it's that first bullet that makes this such a tremendous success, because out of those 18 students that were in that class, 16 of them were on academic probation, which means they had to have had at least 2 semesters with a GPA less than 2.0. And so most of the class was on academic probation, and we still kept the retention and success rates comparable to the regular class. So definitely the learning community showed great, I think, a great possibility of success. A few parting thoughts that I want to give you. You know, I've been asked, what can the state do? And I think there are already many local programs that have been developed to trying to respond to the need of the developmental student. I think what needs to be done is to investigate those programs, find those that are being successful, and then disseminate that information. I don't think it's a matter of creating new programs. I think they're already out there. I think it's a matter of tracking them better, doing a little bit of better job of showing whether or not they're successful, and then at the college level, we definitely need to replicate those programs. The 2 smaller bullets there, the one thing that I've noticed through my many years in higher education is that the part-time faculty are many times left out of any training plan. And if we're going to do training, we need to include them. And we need to accept students from where they are, not from where we want them to be or from where we think they should be. Just accept them from where they are and move them forward. I think with your support, we can dramatically improve the success and retention rates of our students. The faculty do stand with you, ready to provide insights and recommendations for the best ways to accomplish these important goals. Thank you.
Again, congratulations, and we certainly appreciate you being here this morning to share your comments and philosophy. Do any member of the board have any questions of Dr. Carr? Thank you so much.
We do have great programs at Collin College, but I know that is not unique to our school, so I would encourage you to investigate those programs and to see what we can do to move this process forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on to our next item on the agenda, which is agenda item 6, matters relating to the Committee on Strategic Planning. I'd like to call on its chairman, Mr. Whitrider.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. The first agenda item is a committee's report, committee chair's report, and there's really just one item I'd like to report on that's not included in the book, and that is that since our last meeting, we have named a facilities approval task force, which is going to be chaired by Mr. Heldenfels and Ms. Mendoza serving on it, and also Susan Brown from our staff, and also Gary Johnston. And this task force has emulated from conversation in our committee about is the approval process for capital projects for the institutions as efficient as it could be. And so we've asked this task force to really look at three different aspects. The first is one, just looking at the efficiency of the approval process, and are we using the institution's time efficiently, using the staff's time efficiently, and really driving out what we call a value added to the process. Secondly is the approval criteria. There's been a lot of conversation about making sure that the criteria that we use for evaluations of these projects ultimately tie back into what we're all about, and that is closing the gaps. If, does that point towards one of those four goals that we've established? And the third is really what I'd call just the whole presentation. The project briefing sheets that we use to evaluate the projects and that are presented to the board for subsequent approval, are we doing as good a job, and does that have the pertinent material? They have just started that with this work. I think our first, Fred, y'all met a week ago.
15th.
Right. And I asked Fred if he has any other comments. I know that the desire is to internally begin to assimilate some of our thoughts and processes, but not to do that in a vacuum, as we never do. But once we develop what I'd call a core presentation of the key issues, is then to have institutional involvement and institutional feedback. And Fred, you might want to make any other comments as to the direction you're taking.
Wood, I think you touched on the key priorities. The only thing that I would add is that in our discussion we also talked a little bit about how do we take this process of approving individual capital projects from all the multitude of institutions in our state to also looking at the macro level of campus system and statewide master planning. And I would also, the other thing I would say is that while this isn't in our new task force scope, we also discussed the importance of at some point getting back to the capital funding task force that we had to also explore how we can create better longer-term planning and financing tools for our institutions. So those are the other two topics of discussion that we had.
Any questions at all? Okay, thanks for heading that out. I appreciate it. Agenda item 6D is consideration of adopting the committee's recommendations to the board relating to the construction and properties purchase projects. And the committee reviewed presentations on the two projects which we're going to look at today. And Susan, is Susan here? Susan,
Right here.
She's right there. That snuck up on me. Most of the projects that we looked at this last time were really within the scope of the committee, with the exception of these two, and then a third that we'll address here in a minute. The first project is a request from the University of Texas at the MD Anderson Center to construct the Center for Targeted Therapy, and that is under agenda item 6B, as I said. And as you'll notice, the source of funds for this project includes tuition revenue bonds, but the majority of this funding is going to be coming from permanent university funds and cash. So we're not approving evaluation, we're approving the project. So this project does meet all the board standards that we look at each time. And I don't know if Susan Lipke is here today. Is Susan here?
Haven't seen her.
No, she's here. Susan was here and spent a great deal of time with the committee. We'd be happy to answer any questions for the rest of the board on this project. Recommend approval. Yes, no approval, Mr. Chairman. Motion from Mr. Heldenfels. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Brenda. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed by the same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. The second project is a request from the University of Houston to purchase McGregor Park, and I think we do have a supplemental handout. There's a pink sheet that I just saw. And again, the project does meet all the board standards. The one exception to that is the appraisal. And I know that Dave Irvin is here. Is Dave here?
Dylan is here.
Oh, Dylan's here, okay. And because we do have an exceptional appraisal, we have given you these additional supplemental items. I have not had a chance to even look at these. I'm looking at these also. But welcome, and if you can walk us through the appraisal issue and any other comments.
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chairman. The University of Houston did develop a framework plan which was adopted by the board last year. Part of the planning exercise was to look at what opportunities there were for land acquisition around the campus. This, as many other parcels, were not available, and so were excluded from any of our planning discussions. Subsequently, with activity from staff and board members, we were able to come forward, or were able to persuade the owners of the property to sell it to us. We undertook appraisals. One of the difficulties with appraising properties like this is that it is, for all intents and purposes, undeveloped. It's in its pristine environmental condition, and it's adjacent to a park, and it is, of course, a key entrance to the campus. Appraisers have enormous difficulty assessing value to properties that do not have development adjoining it, and that's one of the reasons we have a discrepancy between what is being suggested as a appraised value versus what we have ultimately agreed to in terms of a payment. I would also like to point out, you've obviously received a letter signed by Associate Vice Chancellor Irvin, indicating several reasons why this property is important to us. One of the things I would like to add is that this campus has several outparcels which we attempted to acquire several years ago and were unable to do so. We now have projects that, for lack of a better term, look like strip centers being built adjacent to facilities that this committee has approved and built at the entrance to the campus. This is an entrance, it's a gateway site. We need to have control so we don't diminish the value of and feel of this campus. And it is our recommendation and that we support this acquisition.
This is one of the few undeveloped pieces of property still in Satellite 610, and I'm sure everybody's familiar with that, which comes at a premium too. When we looked at this as previously, we thought it was a very strategic location for U of H going forward. So, thank you for your explanation. Questions? Mike?
Actually, I have a comment. Under the item, it says that the project does not directly address closing the gaps goals. I would argue that I think that it does. I think that when we're talking about building capacity and the potential, and in particular the location, that most universities throughout the state are somewhat landlocked, and this represents an opportunity for capacity building. So I would think that it actually does meet those goals, maybe not specifically by the criteria that you might think, but it seems like it really does.
I think that's a very good point.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. We've always struggled with that,
Yeah.
and they respond to it. But I mean, that's a good argument.
Other comments? Not going to have a motion for approval. Ms. Bricker, second. Mr. Hinton, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed by the same sign. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Agenda item 6C. This agenda item is, as I previously mentioned, is an informational item for the board, and no action is required. And we want to provide the board with a list of all the projects which the committee took action on at our last meeting, and that was these do include those that we looked at in the December meeting. With the exception of the UT Health Center Science Center regarding the Cancer Therapy Center, does anybody on the committee have any questions at all regarding any of those other projects that we took up? The one exception, well, I noticed, you did notice there was one project in here, and it's, let's see which one, Susan, it's back, fourth project, I guess, correct? It's outlined in your material. This was a project where an opportunity where UT Health Science Center in San Antonio had the opportunity to purchase the Cancer Therapy and Research Center. And as indicated by the size of this project, normally this project would have come to the board for approval. But within our rules, there are provisions for emergency approval, and that's what happened in this case. This is a very fast-moving item, to say the least, and the university was under a confidentiality agreement, a non-disclosure agreement, and so that's why it was taken up as an agenda item. I will tell you the project met all of our standards as we went through it. We spent a substantial amount of time. Dr. Siguro from UT San Antonio was here, and I guess all I'll say is I think it's a unique opportunity for that institution. And I think it's a unique opportunity for the city because this is an institution that I think will provide great opportunities for UT to even bring expanded research dollars, not only to San Antonio, but to the state. And from what we could determine, there was uniform support among both institutional boards as well as the community leaders. So we look at this as a win-win for San Antonio, we look at it as a win-win for UT, and a win-win for the state of Texas. And we'll be happy to address any questions. I don't know if there's any reps from UT San Antonio here today, but normally we would not be acting on something that would be outside of our scope. Could we answer any questions? We're not taking action, it's approved, but I also want you to know that we don't take that emergency approval flexibility very liberally. We don't do that. I think it's the first one I can remember in the 4 years.
It's been quite a while.
Yeah, it has been quite a while.
So,
Yeah.
But I think you accurately described it.
great, thank you. Agenda items 6D, 6E, and 6F. These are all on the consent calendar, which we previously approved. Agenda item 6G is an update on the Texas Higher Education Accountability System, and I think Janet Minke is going to make a presentation. And for the new board members, I will tell you, if you have not gone in and drilled down into the website and looked at the accountability system, it's a great process for really understanding what's going on. And the fourth version is now completed and now is available on the website. And Janet, who's our Director of Planning, will give us an update.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning, Janet.
Yes, the accountability system is one of the most important things that the coordinating board does each year. And as Mr. Ryder mentioned, this is the fourth year of the accountability system. We've just posted data for fall 2007 and for FY 2007 for most of the measures for state institutions. For those of you who are new to the board, and as a refresher, for those of you who've been around a while, I'm going to give you a brief background on the fundamentals of accountability. Then I'll talk about its most important aspect, the uses of the accountability system, and then I'll show you how to get to the accountability system online and how to navigate through it. In late 2003, there was a lot of interest in accountability on the part of the coordinating board members, the legislature, the governor, and their staffs. And in January 2004, Governor Perry issued an executive order that required the coordinating board and state institutions to develop an accountability system. Because the community colleges are considered local entities, they were not actually part of the executive order. But they recognized the importance of having an accountability system, and they realized they might easily be asked to participate and told how to participate if they didn't voluntarily do so. So in spring 2005, they agreed to become part of the accountability system. The data for the community colleges for fall 2007 is not yet available. We still have some reports that haven't been certified yet. So we hope to have that report finished and posted in about a month. As we were developing the accountability system, it was emphasized that one of the fundamental purposes was to support achievement of closing the gaps. So as the coordinating board worked with the institutions, with legislative and executive staffs, and with the institutional organizations to develop the measures, we tried to mirror the elements of closing the gaps. And so you can see that the primary sections are participation, success, excellence, and research. In addition, there's a section on institutional efficiency and effectiveness, and for the health-related institutions, there's also a patient care section. The system was designed to have only a small number of key accountability measures. This was to keep it both understandable and focused, so that it didn't get too out of hand. But to augment or supplement those limited number of measures, we do have an additional assortment of contextual measures that provide additional information. And also in addition to that, the institutions are allowed to go in and complete narrative statements or add additional data that they think explains their particular situation. So they have a way to make this partly their own system rather than just a statewide cookie-cutter version. We always encourage everybody to use the system that is online, because the institutions can add and change those narrative measures at any time during the year. The measures chosen were primarily those which the coordinating board already had information and data for, so we could calculate them easily. The uses of the accountability system, it's made use of by legislators, especially during legislative sessions. We hear that many legislators will have their laptops there and be looking at the data for the institutions while the institutional representatives are testifying. For that reason, we strongly encourage that all the institutional representatives become totally familiar with the accountability system and with the measures for their institution in case they get questions on it. It's being used by university systems and community college boards. They are using it to track the progress of their institutions, but now a few of them are also using it to evaluate personnel and see how their particular institutions are doing. And it's also used by the coordinating board staff. As an example of staff usage of the accountability system, when we receive new requests for facilities, we'll look and see what they say is the reason for the request. If they say it's to increase enrollment, we'll look back over past requests from that institution, see if they had similar statements about increasing enrollment, and then compare it with the data that's in the accountability system to see if that has actually happened. A similar process happens with the academic affairs side when they receive new program requests. So the staff is actively using the accountability data to supplement and enrich its understanding of an institution. The data is also used for things that are presented both to you and to the public. In your agenda, when you have requests for new facilities, there's always an institutional profile that's in there. That profile is drawn from the key accountability measures. And we've discussed before report cards that were the subject of a bill during the last session, that we're working on those still, and most of the measures that are in those report cards will also be either key or contextual measures from the accountability system. Then there's the possibility that some of the accountability measures may be used for incentive funding. That's still up in the air, but certainly they relate to the important things that the legislature and the governor's office wants to achieve. We've always emphasized to the institution since the beginning of accountability that the whole system is not meant to be a gotcha kind of system, as David Gardner always says. It's meant to be used for improvement. And one of the primary ways of using accountability for improvement are through the existence of peer groups. These peer groups meet several times a year, and the universities, for example, are divided into 5 peer groups based on the number of doctoral degrees awarded and the amount of research expenditures they have. So the peer groups end up being used for benchmarking for the institutions. And in addition, also within the accountability system, the peer groups have chosen out-of-state institutions as their benchmarking peers, and individual institutions also add like up to 3 institutions that are their out-of-state peers. During the meetings of the peer groups, they'll discuss how the aspects of the accountability system relate to closing the gaps, if they think they're really making much progress, how that's working. They'll share best practices with each other. And one thing that'll be happening at your April board meeting, in the November meetings from the peer groups, they have started pulling out and looking at success measures. They've each chosen 2 to 3 success measures to concentrate on. They're examining and evaluating the data for those success measures, and they're also going to mention the best practices for the individual institutions. Those reports will be coming to you at your April meeting, and it's a way of us ensuring that the peer groups are actually really using the accountability system and the peer groups themselves for the purpose for which they were designed. Now we'll go to the accountability system online and show you how to use it. Okay. If you're on our main web page and look on the left-hand side, there's a link that says Interactive Tools. If you click on that, the accountability system is the very first item that comes up in the list. And as you scroll down the main page, you first come to the measures and definitions that say how we calculate the various measures and give a little more description of them. There's also an area for interactive downloading of data for multiple years, and so you can pick any of the types of institutions and download the data there. And you'll see we come to the primary sections of the accountability system. And if, for example, you choose the university's performance, the page that comes up for each time you click at a top level page is the statewide results. But if you want results for individual institutions, you can use the drop-down menu, and you have to press the go button or it doesn't actually change until to the institution's data. But now you can see we're looking at the data for Texas State San Marcos, and you'll see links for more detail, and for the out-of-state peer data, we have included charts there to give a visual explanation of the data. And as you scroll down, you'll see the boxes there where the institution has added contextual information that they think is important to help understand their information. And on the top of the page, on the right-hand side, you're able to print the whole thing in a PDF format for each individual institution if you want to. And further above that, on the right-hand side, you can see you can navigate between the various sections of the accountability system without having to go back to the main menu. If you click on the success button for universities, you'll see that the first success measure for the institutions, the 4-, 5-, and 6-year graduation rate. I'm mentioning this because there's always some discussion about whether we report same and other graduates. So this shows you that for the first-time full-time students who graduate from an institution, we have as the primary measure the combination of those who graduate from the same institution where they originally started and those who graduated from any other Texas public or private institution. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have just a couple of questions. And I mean, this is such a great way, not just for peer performance, but just, as you said, identifying best practices. And I know that it's being used pretty extensively at the university system. And I've heard you comment that it's been used at the community college system. The reason I ask this is because I have a good friend who is on a board of trustees for one of the larger community college districts here in the state, and he was not aware of the system, and somehow he heard about it, and called me, and I linked him into the coordinating board, and he had shared with me just how instrumental it had been in him in terms of now driving out performance evaluations and really looking at their community college and all their various branches. Have we seen wide usage across the state by community colleges? Of course, I mean in terms of interaction questions coming back into the coordinating board.
Well, because we have meetings with them regularly, we do have a lot of contact, and we feel like they're using it pretty extensively. Whether the boards are using it is another question, but certainly the staffs of the community colleges communicate with us very consistently about their measures and about concerns that they have. And just like with the universities, we have 5 community college peer groups, and those peer groups all met in November, and most of them have had subsequent meetings to that meeting to work on their reports and talk about their best practices. So we do feel like it's being used.
Mr. Chair, I'm trying to remember if in our Regents training, if we have a piece on accountability, that might be an opportunity to train the Regents and give them the feedback that they need and the input and allow for feedback from them. That might be an opportunity for them to better understand, and all of us to better understand and be refreshed about what's going on with the accountability system.
That's a great point.
I don't remember.
I don't think we did.
We haven't.
Ryan, I don't think we did a piece on it.
Good, that I'm just not forgetting something that we You're not forgetting.
We will. That's a great idea. We absolutely will.
Because it's a tremendous tool that the trustees or the regents can use very effectively if they know it's available. So it's a great suggestion. I know it was not on our last agenda item. The only other thing, Janet, and this is kind of a one-off, but we had a presentation last meeting, or I think on the report card, the one pager we were looking for that I know Mr. Heldenfels has been very interested in. Can you give us an update? Of course, that's going to draw from this database, but where are we on that, and when do we think we'll have another look at that?
We're continuing to work on that. The primary person who was working on it for us, because we have limited staff, had a baby, and she has been out for about a month, but she'll be coming back very shortly, and we are continuing to work on it and develop it. We're working with the staff of Senator Shapiro on what they want in that. But it's pretty well designed at this point. It'll be a matter of just implementing it.
We have also been working, actually having conversations. The University President and Chancellors Association are working on a similar thing. There's the National Voluntary System that has a lot of the same information, and we're actually working with that group, and we're going to be working with them to make sure that we're not having slightly different measures, and to see if we can align those two and maybe help them in reporting some of that information so they're not doing double reporting and that sort of thing. So that's something new, and that group has just gotten formed not too long ago. Right now, it's our understanding, I talked to Denise Trout, President of Texas State last night, and they've got 29 of the institutions that are going to be doing that voluntary reporting system. So we're going to be working with them to make sure that we're not showing things as apples and oranges. I mean, having people get really confused about seeing it in 2 different formats.
Susan, do you think we'll have an opportunity to see that at our next meeting? This is in March. I'd sure like to see us pull it back up, because I think it really ties in very nicely with the task force that Mr. Heldenfeld has been looking at in terms of an easier shot at looking at the institutions, and I think it also ties into the whole college readiness issues. It's the whole access issue, and how do we make it easy for parents to see a snapshot of what an institution looks like in a one-page readable type format. So, I mean, I think it crosses many disciplines of what we're doing right now. So I'd like to tee it up sooner than later if we can. So.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought it up, because the last slide of the presentation, I mean, even though the accountability system is designed to drive out, I think earlier in the presentation we said relatively few measures, relatively few in our world is defined as 31 accountability measures for community colleges on the low end, 53 for universities on the high end. So we know the legislature wants to see that one-page report card, but its usefulness to consumers, to parents, and as you pointed out, to be part of our project briefing review, give us that snapshot as opposed to the back page that we have now, would be a great use for that. But I do encourage the consensus you're trying to build, so that we don't have apples and oranges and we don't reinvent the wheel.
Thank you. Any other comments? Janet, thanks. Appreciate it very much. Agenda, and that was an informational item on the agenda, and we do not need to take any action on that today. Agenda item 6H is an update on the success goals of closing the gaps. Y'all know that we will give the board an update each meeting on one of these goals of success with the updated information. Susan is going to make that presentation.
Thank you very much. We'll go on to the next. This is just a reminder that in 2005, the board considered and actually updated the goals of closing the gaps, and the goals for success is to award 210,000 undergraduate degree certificate awards by 2015. I'm going to also, this is a reminder of what the strategies are, and these are the strategies from Closing the Gaps that was published in 2000. And it's very interesting that many of these strategies are actually, they didn't get a lot of attention at the beginning, and now they're starting to get more. First one is to focus on efforts of increasing those in critical fields, graduates in critical fields. Those are the STEM fields, nursing, allied health, and we'll go into a little bit more of that. To carry out the state's uniform recruitment and retention strategies, which are aimed at increasing enrollments and graduations, and making more reflective of the state population. Fund colleges and universities to reward increases in retention and graduation from high-quality programs. That's something that's a very a topic of discussion lately with the incentive funding. We've also suggested creation of incentives required for seamless student transition. As you know, we're having a transfer summit in February. Then making the partnerships and collaborations between businesses and community and higher education part of the culture, so that institutions in the community are more attuned to each other and supportive of each other. I'm going to go up through the goals first, and the first one is that we are on track. If you'll look at the slope of the red line up there, it shows that the 2005, where we increased the targets, but even with that increase, even though the yellow line, which are the actual awards, the slope has decreased a little bit, we're still on track right now. We did expect there to be some ramp-up time, so it's not a straight line. We expected that it takes time for programs to be put in place before you start seeing the success. So that was included in the way the goals were set for closing the gaps. This is a little unusual. If you'll notice, the light blue line is actually taller than the state targets for 2010. That's the good news. We've been working with the institutions and talking to them, and they have come in and just, I think they were due the first part of December, reset their goals. We ask them each year to evaluate where their targets are and their goals that they have set for themselves and how they're doing. And for the first time, they're actually higher than the statewide goals. That's a good thing. Of course, that means that we need to do more work on our side to go back and see if we need to readjust the state goals. So this is a good news, bad news sort of thing. The good news is that the institutions are responding to our requests, and they are taking the goals of closing the gaps very seriously. So that's it. Here again, this is one area that we're going to have to do a little bit more work on. If you look at the goals for the Hispanic and African American, the institutional targets still do not reach what we're hoping for on the statewide goals. And if you look at our progress, we're only at about, for Hispanics, we're at 53% up the way towards the 2015. We're 70% of the way as far as a year, or 50% of the way as far as the years. We're not quite up to where we should be on the targets as far as the success, but we're trying, and we are making some progress. These institutional targets, though they don't meet statewide goals, they are higher than they were in the past. So they have made some improvements, but they're not what we want, and we need to go back and look at that some more and see what we can do. And hopefully sharing some of these best practices and some of the programs that are being implemented through HB1 will help, because we'll get better prepared students. Y'all just approved the college readiness standards, and as those get implemented, hopefully some of that will help along these same areas.
Technology, that's one area where we have not been doing as much as we need to do. We have not been getting the results we want to get as far as producing. And technology, and the next slide will talk about that a little bit. It's actually, where are you at? It's actually 4 areas. That's computer science, engineering, math, and physical science combined. And if you look at this slide, engineering actually we've made more progress than we have. Computer science we've actually lost. We're reporting fewer computer science degrees than we have in the past. Engineering's gone up, math has gone up, but physical sciences have gone down. So we have made some improvements in engineering, not in computer science. Math has gone up, and we really need to stress the math and physical science because, as many of you know, to produce the teachers that we're going to need in the schools, they don't get a degree in education. They get a degree in math or physical science, and then they do their certification on top of that. So if we're not producing those students in these areas, we're not going to have the teachers that we need. So this is an area of critical importance to the state. This is the nursing and allied health side. We've increased 4,200 since 2000, but you will see that this slide actually goes back to 93. The reason we go back to 93 is, and the white bar across there was the original target. Our original target was to quit losing, to stop. We had 6-7 years of a downward slope, so our target was to stop losing and get back to where we had been. We have actually surpassed that, which is the good news. But this also shows that if everybody focuses, there's been help from the legislature that funded the nursing shortage reduction program. There are loan repayment programs. So if there is a big focus and everybody is working together, we can make a difference. We can see improvement. And so that is one of the things I wanted to emphasize in this slide. If we look at just the increases, you can tell, even though we're not where we want to be, for fall 2007, we have had increases in the African American, Hispanic, the number of degrees being produced in those underrepresented areas. It's been on the university side. This shows it for the 2-year colleges, graduation persistence. And if you look at the bachelor's degrees, those are students that started at a community college, then transferred on and got a bachelor's degree within the 6 years. So the bachelor's degrees have increased, associate degrees have increased, certificates have increased, and the number persisting have increased. So it's good news. If you look down at the bottom, you've got almost a 6 percentage point increase in their graduation and persistence rate. And just to summarize a little bit, implementation of some of those strategies that we had in closing the gaps are under discussion. I think that's a good thing. We focused a lot on participation, and now we're starting to focus more on success. I think it's good. African American and Hispanics have increased, 44% for African American and 65%. And as I mentioned earlier, targeting those areas where we can make a difference in nursing is a proof that if everybody targets an area and it puts funding towards an area, we can make a difference. We have turned it around. Not that we need to stop now, not that we're where we actually want to be. We still need more nurses, but it is proof that we can make a difference. Also, and as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of HB1, the college readiness standards, the 4x4 program for high schools, the fact that universities now students need to have the recommended high school program before entering the university. All those sort of things should help to move the closing the gaps targets, the success targets along the path. They all take time to implement. As I said, we're going to need to review the targets again. One more time. Implementation of the college readiness standards, it's not enough to adopt them. Y'all heard that earlier today. It's not enough to adopt them. We need to implement them and get those ingrained into the thing. And as Janet said, you'll be getting a report from the accountability groups about their success measures and how they've been analyzing, how they look at them themselves. Are there any questions?
Mr. Shepard.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a question, but I have a statement. You know, we sit up here and look at all the numbers and we play our part, but this is all this success is due to the people that are out here in the audience this morning and those that are listening on the internet. I mean, sometimes we stop to think, or don't stop to think that we have had some successes, and so y'all have played a tremendous part in this and should be congratulated. I want to make sure that they were acknowledged in this process.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I want to follow up on what Chairman Shepard said. We spend so much time pushing on achieving the goals of closing the gaps that I think we sometimes lose sight of the substantial progress that's been made. We are going to, I just whispered a comment to Chairman Shepard, we're going to make sure that members of the legislature and representatives of the governor's office have these data in a crystallized form so that political leaders in the state will know and can tell at a glance that there has been substantial progress. Raising the completion rates, the graduation rates by African American students by over 40% is a substantial achievement. Raising Hispanic completion rates in Texas by over 65% is a very substantial achievement. We have a ways to go, but we need to acknowledge the kind of progress we've already made, and we will make sure that members of the legislature know how well we've done. I think collectively, all of us committed to higher education have done over the past 7 years, but the progress has been substantial, and we can achieve the goals of closing the gaps. They are not out of reach at all, and so I urge the institutions to keep doing the good work they're doing, and to be continuing to be innovative and committed, and I think we will hit our goals. I truly believe that.
Spricker?
On many levels, this is incredibly encouraging. I'm wondering if there's an appropriate avenue for you, Commissioner, to speak to the leadership of the universities and all the institutions and get feedback from them at this point and ask them what have they done that's been successful, how have they felt supported by us and others, what are the challenges, how they need more support in some of the areas where they're not feeling as successful. I know you have dialogue with them all the time, but it seems like this is a good time to kind of step back and say, where are we? And then that next step would be in the areas where we are successful and being more than successful of what we thought we would. As I recall, the targets that we set don't exactly put us in the #1 category across the nation as the state of Texas. So maybe it is time to raise the bar. I don't want the institutions to feel an undue pressure of, okay, you did a great job, so now we're going to make it even more difficult. That's why I'm saying the first step should be, in my opinion, to get that kind of input from them. But the next step would be where we are having incredible success, maybe we should raise the bar, and maybe we should revisit the targets that we have set.
We will take a look at every one of those issues. I certainly think it's a great idea to talk to campus leadership about what they've done that's been so successful. We have noted campuses that have had extraordinary success, and we have been in conversation with them about what they've been doing, and we have found, for example, that campuses have put more resources into academic advising, that they've taken some new approaches to developmental education, and we just need to get a better sense of what's going on comprehensively around the state. But a very good idea. We'll follow up on it.
In particular, we have quite a few new leaders across the state.
Yes, we do.
And it would be a really good time to get their feeling, because they weren't in on the beginning stages of this, and maybe they have a totally different perspective, and especially those like our new chancellor at U of H and Houston Community College, for that matter, who have come from other states. It would be interesting to get their perspectives on where they've come from and what things that they've seen.
I just wanted to follow up on something you said, that one of the best decisions the board made when it first adopted the plan was to revisit the goals and targets, on a regular basis. And the board has done that. If you recall, you just a couple of years ago raised the target for participation from 500 to over 600,000. You raised the target for African Americans because we'd achieved it. You essentially changed the target on R&D, and that's something that you should regularly look at. So I just wanted to point out that I think that's one thing that makes your plan unique amongst other states, is that you regularly revisit it and say to the goals and targets make sense. And you have already proven that you're willing to do that when you think it's appropriate.
Other questions?
Well, in response to Ms. Bicker's comment, maybe the thing to do is the goals for 2015 are pretty ambitious. We made some adjustments based on the growth of the population in Texas was faster than had been anticipated in 2000. Closing the gaps was established. Maybe in response to your point that our goals for 2015 are to get us at parity with national participation levels and completion rates and so forth. Maybe the next step is to do an after the closing the gaps plan that would position us in a level of national leadership.
Right, and call it 2015 and beyond.
Yeah.
And really look to the future. Is this on our website? It will be. Good.
Mendoza?
Thank you. We started off this morning adopting the college readiness standards, and in your comments, Commissioner, you talked about how we were raising expectations of our kids and making sure that they were, encouraged to do that, but believe that they can. Well, I think that that's in concert with raising our own standards and looking at expanding what our goals to be as a state, not just parity, but as you all have already said, expanding those completely. We need to celebrate the success, absolutely. But the numbers for Hispanic and African American kids were low to begin with. So if I tripled my sales and I had one sale, well, I just went to 3. I think we ought to be cautious about that. I also think that we ought to look back in the pipeline and say, if our trends keep up from the pipeline that is K through 12, what is our real possibility of hitting those goals? And obviously with the things that we're doing this morning in terms of adopting the readiness standards, the P16 councils, the 4x4, all of that is going to make a difference, but we cannot keep our eyes off the target.
I think that's a really good point, and to remind the board that you've done a lot of incremental things that are working its way out. So one of the first things that was accomplished was getting the legislature to require the recommended high school program as a default curriculum. In fall 2006, more than 98% of the students enrolling at our universities had in fact completed the recommended high school program that were coming directly from high school. Of community colleges, more than 80% that were coming directly from high school had completed that. That was a huge increase. Then, just this year, it was in the plan, but the requirement that for admission to universities, you have a minimum of the recommended high school program. Next sentence, college readiness standards. So one thing the board has been very good at doing is making sure you keep taking that next incremental step, and there will be more beyond this, and you're exactly right.
The landscape for the things that we've done and are doing changes, but also the demographics are changing. And the increasing population of the underrepresented group is working against us. So we need to make sure that we are ahead of that curve and keep thinking about the pipeline and making sure that one of the comments about the Texas A&M campus in San Antonio is the feeder schools aren't producing college-ready kids. Well, I don't think that's just isolated to that one area, and that underrepresented groups are growing. So we need to again just keep staying out front, looking for innovative ways to make this happen, and yes, celebrate success, but know that we've got a tremendous challenge ahead of us, and want to keep our eyes off that ball.
Related to that, I'll point out Susan shared with you strategies that have been included in the closing the gaps, and there may be additional strategies that at some point you think you need to add in that take that next step that you're talking about.
To echo what Elaine's saying, and you too, David, let's not forget that the model we created and passed on to the governor's office for incentive funding was precisely targeted at underrepresented students and STEM field degrees. And so that's one of the strategic tools that hopefully will retain that element when it gets rolled out, and hopefully the legislature will, in 2009, look at that tool and allow us to accelerate the momentum we need on Hispanic and African American graduates.
Ricker.
To follow up, I'm wondering, is there a plan that we have to enable dialogue with the P-12 communities across the state to let them know of this, to let them know of the successes and the challenges, and to talk to them, to talk to the school districts, like when you talk to TEA and the state board, to talk to them about some of the successes of some of the school districts and charter schools that you have visited, like Yes and KIPP, where they literally talk about 100% of their students going to college, and to talk about school districts such as Houston and Spring Branch that have adopted as board policy a college-bound culture. And maybe we could somehow form that partnership and with the governor's office say we would like for every single school district in the state of Texas to have that as their premier focus, a college-bound culture. And carefully, I will add, not that every single child must go to a four-year university or a two-year, but prepared for the workplace or whatever the wording is that's politically correct, but that is our goal, and that every single school district in partnership with our colleges and universities will have that as a mutual goal.
We will certainly do that. We're working on that, and we know where we really have to concentrate our efforts. For example, to talk about the K through 12 sector for a moment, Texas educational success has been improving dramatically in elementary school and middle school. What we need to do now, as you well know, is we need to carry that success into high school. And there are all kinds of initiatives going on in the state that will help us in that regard. I think college readiness standards will help us set targets for high schools in a way that will be meaningful and establish a foundation for progress. But I certainly agree with what Elaine is saying, that we cannot relax or we cannot become complacent. But I feel very strongly that if you want to continue to push institutions and individuals to be successful, you have to acknowledge the success that they've had. And so I think I know that I have not been balanced in my approach to promoting the goals of closing the gaps, but I focus primarily on challenges, and I think it's, at least from my perspective, it's important to once in a while point out that to institutions that they've made some extraordinary gains. I think we have to do the same thing at the K through 12. We talk about all the challenges we have in front of us, but there's been some very substantial progress, and I think we have a strong foundation to accelerate progress between now and 2015 and beyond.
And beyond.
Thank you, Commissioner. The comments, a great discussion, and the story, if I remember, we had to report on what the participation goal last meeting, and it was very similar results to what we saw, even though we saw some decline in enrollment trends, we still saw that we were on track right now. So, and I think that'll be important for us to communicate.
But yeah, and let's not lose sight that the institutions are pulling their goals up now beyond, that wasn't the case last time. And so they made a lot of strides there.
That was the first board meeting you came to, I think.
Are you giving him credit for it?
Maybe so, yeah. Take it where you can.
Get it, Fred. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Ms. Cole.
I just wanted to say I think this conversation is a great segue into what we're going to do next, because one of the most important strategies, I think, for us in closing the gaps is further policy and legislation that supports what we want to do in the implementation of the college readiness standards and so forth. And we've got to, maybe we can talk to Laura about that when she gets up.
Great point. Great segue. So, into agenda item 6, this is the last agenda item for strategic plan today, and that is we always have a legislative update, and we've asked Laura Weber, Director of our External Relations, to provide the board with an update.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members. You should have in your packet a piece that looks like this on the committees. Good. Okay. We kind of start there because that's where the process sits right now, is working with interim committees and with commissions and task forces that have been designated to work during the interim. On this, we highlighted those in blue that have had some change since the last time you saw this report. For instance, the High School Completion and Success Initiative Council is actually meeting here tomorrow, and we've included their agenda. It's the next to the last page in your handout of what they'll be discussing tomorrow. The Select House Committee on Higher and Public Education Finance is planning to meet again in February on 25th and 26th. They've asked us to do an overview on higher education financing, formulas, TRBs, financial aid, all the elements that go into financing. So we're working with them on that now. The House Committee on Higher Education, we've talked about their interim charges, which we've also attached on the last page of your handout, and started designating staff that's going to be kind of spearheading the effort on some of those interim charges. So there's a lot of work going on within the agency, within the committees on all of these elements. I would say the next opportunity, so to speak, for making policy decisions, recommendations are coming to you both through the formula recommendations. That's a big policy driver for us, as well as legislative appropriations requests. The Commissioner has asked the staff to be brainstorming and coming up with recommendations, especially in regards to the appropriations request. Some of the elements that might be in there that we want to see changes or different methodologies of approaching things. But the board is also going to be working into that process. So those are probably the two key areas along with these committees where we have an opportunity to talk about policy and recommendations for the next session. As the session gets closer, we'll be honing in on specific things, especially things that we see coming out of these committees or out of the work of the board that we need to make sure that we are moving forward in the session. So lots of things are churning under the surface, and we'll start seeing them bubble up here in the next few months.
Laura, I know that we're scheduled to have our retreat on the 21st of February. And I know that one of our agenda items is a whole discussion of the LAR process, which obviously ties back to that. I would hope that during that time that we've got the board together, that we can. I remember last year we did this. We put together the priority items for us, and I know that may be a moving list as the LARs get guidelines and develop that. But I think it'd be great for the board to begin thinking about that today as to what those topics are and looking at them, in our retreat.
Right.
Understanding that they may shift around as we go through the process. Ms. Bricker?
Laura, one of the things that has been incredibly helpful is when you and Mark Spirio came to Houston and met with the Education and Workforce Committee of the Greater Houston Partnership and talked prior to the legislative session, talked about some of the issues that would be bubbling up and allowed for input. And one of the things that I think would be really helpful is to identify different communities throughout the state where you can do that, in particular like the Texas School Alliance and maybe even through the P16 councils. That might be an opportunity for them to gather different kinds of interests together so that there aren't any surprises, so that things are thoughtfully presented and that there's a lot of opportunity for dialogue. I think that there are a lot of opportunities for us to actually have similar legislative agendas with the K-12 or P-12 as well as other higher ed institutions, so that we can go into the session with more and more strength and collaboration.
Right.
But that's been really helpful, and I want to thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate it, and we enjoy that opportunity as well because it's great feedback for us. And I know the commissioner is always out there speaking with groups along these same lines too. So any feedback we have and opportunities to do that, we appreciate. So we'll try to make something happen. So.
Well, and I know with that last conference, when you gave your State of Higher Education address, there were several superintendents in the audience, and there's, you know, the more and more times and opportunities that the P12 have to understand and hear what higher ed is thinking, and vice versa, the better off we are as we go into a legislative session and try to produce some sort of meaningful legislation that'll help us all.
Right.
Questions, comments for Laura?
I have a question about the high school completion success initiative council that's meeting tomorrow. I'm just curious who all is going to be attending that. I know you're on the agenda to present the standards or discuss the standards we just voted on.
Who are members of the?
The council. Who are the participants?
We can get you a list of the.
It's in this pack. Second.
Actually,
Agenda's in here.
the agenda, the behind your spreadsheet, there's a discussion of all the committees so that you know who the members are, if we know who they are, and what their charges are. So that one is on, it's on the bottom of that first page. Yeah.
So the answer is just look at your materials.
She was trying not to say that.
Billy chasing.
I didn't explain that, I'm sorry, but that information is in your packet.
No, Fred, we were very impressed that you read the minutes of
We were.
the meeting, so you're still ahead.
Okay.
You're excused. You were just given this 5 minutes ago.
Allowed one Aggie moment a day.
I noticed you guys are on that side of the town.
I wondered about that.
I should say, too, that we are expecting charges from the lieutenant governor any moment now for the Senate committees, because we don't have those yet. But as soon as we have them, we'll be sharing those as well.
Other questions or comments? Thank you, Laura. That concludes that's an informational item, and that concludes, Mr. Chairman, the report on strategic planning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ryder. What we're going to do is take a real quick 10-minute break, and then I'm going to ask the chairman of the AER committee to go ahead and, with everybody's permission, move the agenda forward and continue on. Okay. Thank you. Number 8, which are matters relating to the Committee on Academic Excellence and Research. This time I'd like to call on our committee chair, Lynn Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll begin the meeting of the Academic Excellence and Research Committee. The first item is my report. We have been busy. The AER committee has met 3 times since the October board meeting. On December 12th, we met for our regularly scheduled quarterly meeting, and in special called meetings January 15th and 23rd, which you all know about because you all were there. Appreciate your support. The December 12th meeting featured a report by Dr. David Conley, who we were talking about earlier, who presented an overview of the development process used to draft the college readiness standards in math, science, social sciences, and English language arts, and cross-disciplinary standards. Dr. Conley also described the subsequent public comment process and gave the committee a preliminary summary of the types and range of comments that were received on the draft during the 30-day public comment period that ended on December the 10th. Dr. Conley's staff from EPIC, which facilitated the work of the vertical teams of faculty, then produced the analysis of the public comments. The committee also heard a preview of the process by which the recommendation voted on earlier today was derived. I guess I should say the recommendations. A process that included meetings earlier this month by the vertical teams, many meetings of faculty to finalize their work, and we appreciate their working over Christmas and a bunch of holidays, Saturdays, lots of hard work. Later, the committee heard a report on recent shifts in the review process for doctoral programs. This is a subject the board revisits periodically because of its importance and due to the changing nature of demands facing doctoral education. We will hear a brief presentation on this today. The committee also reviewed our agenda for today's board meeting and received written reports on recent staff activity. The agenda for the January 15th special called meeting was discussion and adoption of the Commissioner's recommendation on the proposed college readiness standards. The committee heard a summary of the final work by the faculty vertical teams in preparing their recommendation to Commissioner Paredes, and then heard the Commissioner's recommendation to adopt the standards for English language arts, math, science, and the cross-discipline standards. The committee also heard the Commissioner's related recommendations on implementation of the standards. At yesterday's special called meeting, the Commissioner recommended adoption of the social science standards. The recommendation to adopt all the standards was voted on earlier today, as you know, on Board Agenda Item 4. The January 23rd special called meeting agenda also included updates on the new Coordinating Board Higher Education Policy Institute, on a pilot project on timely graduation incentives, and an update on the state plan for Perkins 4. The meeting also addressed consideration of recommendations on requests from 2 private post-secondary institutions relating to their certificates of authority, and readoption of Chapter 7 rules with amendments based on the statutory 4-year review. That concludes my report as committee chair. The next item is our presentation on doctoral programs, not an action item, and our Assistant Commissioner Joe Stafford will make the presentation. Joe?
Good morning. I wanted to give you a quick report on the work of the Graduate Education Advisory Committee. That's a committee that's been working on things for more than a couple of years. Dr. Sandra Terrell, University of North Texas, chairs that. Mitch Mooson, co-chair. They've made several recommendations. They are really recommendations to the staff, but I didn't want to proceed on implementing those without your being aware of them. And it is at the request of the committee as well that I present them to you. These are pretty much focused on doctoral programs, and especially the research doctors, and so the committee will continue to work on master's level and on some of the professional doctoral work. Think of these recommendations in the context then of the traditional PhD or similar research-oriented doctoral programs. They've made 5 specific recommendations, the first of which is that we disseminate to the presidents and the chief academic officers a report on diversity, and it's in some sense a handbook on how to achieve greater diversity in our doctoral programs. It was done very well by a graduate student at Corpus Christi. I've got copies of that available if you want to see it. It's about an inch of paper, and it's really directed at the presidents and the chief academic officers. The second recommendation is that both the coordinating board and the institutions start posting a set of 18 accountability measures by degree program. Now, what's important here, you've heard the reports this morning about accountability at the institutional level. For doctoral programs, this is accountability at the individual program level. There are 18 of these measures that they recommend. They include such things as the average time to degree, the average financial support, the average research support of the faculty, a set of measures that we're pretty confident we can all collect. In fact, a few of the institutions have gotten those collected, and I understand from Dr. Terrell that she's prepared to post the UNT ones here shortly. So this will be a different level of accountability. It's an accountability that is directly relevant to a prospective student who is trying to decide which doctoral program to enter. The third recommendation is that all doctoral programs be required to have a periodic peer review, a review by people in that discipline from external to the campus, and that it be on a regular cycle. Now, many of the doctoral programs have that kind of thing already through their specialized accreditation. So the business school, for example, the ASCB will do that review. A vet will do it for engineering and so forth, but not all do. What this says is everybody will, and if there isn't an accreditation body to do it, then we construct some other type of review. We're also looking at the staff level at the possibility of a supplemental review that would focus specifically on the scholarship, and I'll comment on that in a moment. A third one is to raise the productivity standards in our own checklist. We now require a minimum of 3 degrees awarded per year just to stay in good graces and not trigger a review, and they're suggesting that that be raised. And I'll elaborate on that in a moment. To put all of this in some context, think of the research degree as an apprenticeship in scholarship. These are research apprenticeships. And if you think of it in that way, then obviously a precondition for a PhD program, if you're going to apprentice someone, is you've got to have a master there. You've got to have somebody who is genuinely an expert. And so the sort of critical element in these peer reviews is the review of that scholarship. When you have the external accrediting body come in to do that review, that's done very thoroughly, and it's really for those programs that are not a part of a professional accreditation group that we may need this. So we're looking at some alternate pathway for doing that. The number of degrees awarded is, if you will, a little bit like the canary in the mine. If you're not producing very many degrees, that may mean that there are not enough top quality scholarship going on. It sort of says, let's go take a look. So part of what GIAC is recommending by raising that standard to 3 is saying, let's look a little sooner. That will be one of the issues that we'll address. The other issue, and the remaining one you'll see here, re-justify the need for new programs. We now use the preliminary authority process to establish authority to go out and recruit faculty and put the resources in place. And that's based on the need for the program and the issues of potential duplication. If those are resolved, they have that preliminary authority and proceed to put resources in place. What the committee is saying is if that need justification gets too old, we need to go back and look at it. So the preliminary authority shouldn't last too long. And so we'll come back to you with some recommendations on how long that preliminary authority should stand. But we are taking a harder look at any proposal that's been around for a while. That's where the committee, Graduate Education Advisory Committee is. I don't think you need to take any action on this, but if you have any concerns, if you think we're headed off the wrong direction in some way, then we would appreciate your advising us accordingly.
Joe, did you say you would or you could disseminate the diversity report to the board?
Be glad to send it to anybody that's interested.
Send it to everybody.
Okay. I know we kill a lot of trees, and I didn't want to pound you with another inch of paper, but we'll send it.
Why don't we put it online?
Can you put it online or email?
That's a good idea.
Joe, one quick question on in relationship to killing trees. Is it possible to give us any executive summary formats on any of these materials versus sending us the long version?
I'm sorry.
An executive summary, you said that the report's over.
We can do that.
Oh, yes.
I just think it's a good idea to save trees and also to make sure that we comprehend the material.
Sure. Well, let us send you the executive summary, and we'll post all of it on the web, and then if you want hard copies of the rest, we'll be glad to send it to you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman.
Joe, if you want some feedback, I mean, it appears, at least in summary form, what we're seeing is exactly what we had asked of the the committee. So, I mean, from my perspective, I think you're headed in the right direction, and they're headed in the right direction.
Madam Chairman, my question was on particularly this fifth point, re-justifying the need for new programs. When can we expect to hear the report on that? When will that come back to the committee or to the board?
What we're doing now, just as a matter of staff work, is on every proposal that's coming to us, we're not accepting the previous preliminary authority without some re-examination. So every time you get a proposal, you can be assured that the staff has taken a second look at need.
I guess what I'm asking, or what I was hoping that was going to result from this, was that the committee or the staff were going to take a statewide look across all graduate programs at, you know, what do we as a state need? You know, our Closing the Gaps goals focus primarily on undergraduate and participation and success, but, you know, I have no idea personally, you know, are we at a shortage of certain types of PhDs but a glut of others? So it would be interesting to see a statewide across all institutions assessment.
It would. I'm not sure I know how to shoehorn that in, but I get the message on it, and as we proceed with a broader state strategic planning, that would certainly be an important element of it. That's probably the right place for us to try to do it.
Let me call your attention to the regional plan you will be adopting in the future regional plan, and actually Dr. Phillips had suggested that when we update it, that we ought to have a workshop for board members who are interested because of the amount of information that's available in that. One part of that is not really exactly what you're saying, but it could provide the foundation for it. There's something that addresses the by region high demand fields, meaning those fields for which students are enrolling and want programs. It does not mean that you necessarily need it, but highlights by region programs that are absent, that there seems to be at least a high interest from students. And then I noticed the first time we did it that all of South Texas did not have one doctoral program in curriculum instruction, for example. And so one thing that's been talked about is highlighting programs. That's just the first step. It doesn't mean you need it, but at least there's a demand for it, or at least, and I think some need in school districts for that. It's a starting point to help institutions actually identify programs for which there is certainly student demand beyond what the institution may be interested in. So we could build on that, though it's not, you know, in its present form it isn't what you're talking about, but it could help.
And because there's a different, I think I'd like to see us be able to look at statewide as well as regional needs, not picking on any programs, but there may be graduate degrees that, even though a part of the state lacks service, the sum total is take law degrees, for example, more than the state needs.
And let me call you related to that.
On any particular degree.
The staff has done and is going to update. Specific studies have been done in terms of the need for law degrees, medical schools, nursing. So there's a series of those that could be done, and so that same model could be, when you take the one I mentioned, that one could get closer to what you're talking about.
And I can tell you that in general, if we don't get down to the sort of the narrow specialization of a degree, that we're pretty competitive with doctoral programs across the broad spectrum. We're pretty competitive with, say, within a field like engineering or a field like the social sciences. You get down to the specifics of a specialization within psychology, and that's a lot harder to zero in on.
Fred, where I think part of this is going to come up pretty soon, and we're going to do, we being the staff, is going to serve as a resource for the committee, HCR 159, the Morrison Committee. That's one of the issues that I know Chairman Morrison has been real interested in. She's probably mentioned it at least 4 or 5 times to Raymond and myself. So I see that the work that David and everybody's going to be doing in this regard, coming not only to us, but coming to the select committee at about the same time. I mean, it's a good question. Every time you go downtown, everybody keeps grappling with that. What should we look like? Where should they all be? The degrees. I mean, it's a monumental task, but we need to try to do it.
If she's asking it, I don't need to ask. So.
No. We just continually told her, we'd be happy to help, and so she's definitely going to call on us.
We know we need to take a closer look at graduate education, and of course, when you're talking at doctoral education, then you have to look at national trends, because the market and the issues about the need and filling need are addressed at a national level, not at a local level. It may well be that we are underproducing by some calculations doctoral recipients in certain fields, but if there's plenty of supply nationally, then the question becomes one of recruitment rather than production. So it's a complex issue, but we are well aware that we need to take a close look at graduate, particularly doctoral education in Texas.
Any further discussion? Joe, I know I speak for everybody who lives in Central Texas when I say that if you can figure out how to print these things on cedar trees, just send us a Okay, the next item is 8C, consideration of adopting the committee's recommendation for approval of requests for a new degree program and a new college. Joe will explain these requests, and if there are no objections, we'll treat these first two related requests as a single item for action. Item 8C1 is from Texas A&M University's Health Science Center for creation of a College of Nursing. And item 8C2, also from Texas A&M University's Health Science Center, is for a Bachelor of Science in Nursing degree with a major in nursing. Joe, take us through these, please.
Well, I think the first and almost surprising element is we're talking about a health science center that doesn't yet have a college of nursing. When you have a nursing program, it's pretty standard for it to be in a college or a school as an organizational unit, and so what this does is to create that organizational unit, and then the next item authorizes the establishment of the baccalaureate program, actually 3 different tracks in the baccalaureate BS in nursing. One of those is what we call the generic, or the typical one. One's an accelerated program, and one is for the associate degree nurse to complete a bachelor's degree. So these are 3 separate programs, but the curricula are closely integrated, and the faculty would deliver all 3 of those. Clearly, this is a school that would come back shortly with proposals for graduate programs in nursing, but for now it gets things going with a comprehensive set of bachelor's degrees and an organizational unit to do it. They've got facilities. They've had one of the other institutions in the A&M system supporting them and getting things started, and so it's ready to go. And we'd recommend approval of both.
Questions or comments? Joe, do you know how we're doing with narrowing the anticipated gap between the number of nurses we need and the number of people with graduate degrees who train nurses?
The nursing faculty issue remains a significant problem across the nation. And we have some other programs that are addressing closing the nursing gap. It's clear that the faculty shortage is a big issue and likely to continue to be for some time.
We've heard the recommendation. Do I have a motion for approval of both of these requests? Second. Ms. Ricker and Mr. Wingo. All right. Motion is made. Any discussion?
Yes. I just wanted to comment on the enrollment factor on page, not numbered. Well, anyway, the enrollment of African American and Hispanics, if you look at the percentage changed, I just had, when I looked at the agenda, I made note of that they have 127.3% change from fall 2000 to fall 2006 of African Americans and 101.2% of Hispanics, and I thought that was impressive.
That is really impressive.
So I just wanted to make note of that.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Joe, I'm sorry, I'm pausing here.
I think we're ready for item C, the
C3.
the math education degree.
Item C2. No, that's
No,
what
we
we
don't
just
have
did.
C3.
This is kind of mixed up here. Okay. Item C3 is a consideration of adopting the committee's recommendation for approval of a request from Texas State University San Marcos for a Doctor of Philosophy degree with a major in mathematics education in cooperation with Sam Houston State University. Joe, will you give us the background and the recommendation, please?
I will. You'll recall this is one that we spent some time on in December at the committee meeting. Texas State has a very strong master's in math education, as does Sam Houston. Texas State had a proposal in to also have a PhD in math with an emphasis in discrete mathematics. That has been withdrawn, but the faculty who are a part of that proposal will be a part of this math ed proposal. You saw with Dr. Carr's presentation this morning how important math education is, how much we need strong scholarship and really need to figure out how to move our whole math education system along. So this is an attempt to do that. The two institutions work together. They have very complementary faculty. And while Texas State will have the lead in this, both are strong contributors to it. We'd recommend approval. The committee recommended approval.
Is there any discussion? Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second. Mr. Hellenfeld. Elaine, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item is 8D.
Madam
Sorry?
Chair, there seems to be some confusion about the motion that was made and passed on the previous two programs.
Okay.
And it may simply be that on this side of the room, we didn't hear a vote.
Okay.
And
Do we not vote? Oh, well, let's vote. Let's back up and vote here. Let's see.
I think you're right.
This is item 8C, 1 and 2.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay. We did vote?
We did.
You did vote.
Unanimously for both in the same motion.
Yeah.
Then I apologize. We just didn't hear the vote.
Oh, that's right, because Bob made the motion.
No, I made the motion.
Oh, is it Laurie made it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wake up over there.
I know the motion.
Lively motions around here.
Lizette, tell them.
Our T's crossed.
Lizette, make sure they can hear you. Tell them.
Oh, you're saying you voted.
Yeah, I mean, I know we made the motions, but you're saying we might not have voted.
We didn't hear the vote.
Well, shall we vote again then?
Well, no, if there was a vote.
Well, I don't know if there was or not. I don't remember.
I checked with Judy as well.
Hey, by the time we vote again, we won't even have to argue about it. You have a motion in a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Okay, how's that,
The
Bill?
motion passes. I know the institutions are grateful.
These
that
little
they're-
red and green buttons.
Yeah, get our buttons out.
Okay. Item 8D, is that right, Joe?
Yes.
I want to make sure I do everything right. Consideration of adopting the committee's recommendation for approval of mission statements and tables of programs for the following general academic institutions: Texas A&M University System Health Science Center, Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center, and the University of North Texas Health Science Center at Fort Worth. Joe?
Tables of programs and mission statements are sort of the, almost like the Constitution in a sense for institutions of higher education. It is what they're authorized to teach or to plan to teach, to develop. The table of programs really are the key operative elements. The mission statements, a narrative statement of purpose. In this case, the tables of programs do not change. It is only an updating of the language in the mission statements themselves, and there's no substantive change, and we recommend approval.
All right. Are we going to take all these at once, Joe?
Yes, you can take all three of them at once, unless there are concerns.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay. Agenda item 8E is next. Consideration of adopting the committee's recommendation for approval of preliminary authority requests for the following general academic institutions. Joe?
I mentioned earlier how we use the preliminary authority as an authorization to put resources in place and to begin to plan for a program. This applies at the baccalaureate and master's level as well as the doctoral level. The focus there is primarily on questions of need and demand, demand being whether there be enough students to fill up the program and run it efficiently. There are also questions of duplication. Those are the things we look at in preliminary authority. Pretty explicit about the rules and procedures on that. In the case of Sul Ross Rio Grande campus, it's a bachelor's degree in chemistry. The target is primarily secondary school teachers who would teach chemistry as one of the sciences in high school. The other one is a master's degree in mass communications at Corpus Christi. That's a pretty common master's level program at institutions of this size. There's really not much question about either the need or the demand, and we recommend both of these for approval.
Any discussion?
So moved.
Second. One item, one comment. Ms. Bricker, you don't want to make your usual duplication speech? It's important.
Would you like me to?
Ooh.
Why don't you make it, Lynn?
Well, Laurie is always emphasizing that we need to think about our charge to avoid duplication a little bit differently now that we're in the 21st century.
Thank you.
More later. All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 8F is consideration of adopting the committee's recommendation to the board relating to a request from B.H. Carroll Theological Institute in Arlington for an amendment to its existing certificate of authority granting degrees in Texas. The committee discussed this item in yesterday's special called meeting. Assistant Commissioner Glenda Barron will take us through this item and give us the recommendation.
This is a request from B.H. Carroll Theological Institute in Arlington. It's to add 2 degrees to their existing certificate of authority. The staff recommendation to the board is approval.
Questions or comments? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Linda, are you staying for the next one?
I am.
Okay. Item 8G is the consideration of adopting the committee's recommendation to the board relating to a request from 2 private post-secondary education institutions for certificates of authority to grant degrees in Texas. Item 8G1 is from the Galen Health Institute in San Antonio, and item 8G2 is from the Institute for Creation Research in Dallas. We heard a discussion of the Galen Institute request yesterday at our special called meeting. on January 14th, the Institute for Creation Research in Dallas asked to have consideration of their request postponed until they submit more materials. Linda, will you take us through the Galen request?
The Galen Health Institute in San Antonio is seeking a certificate of authority to offer an Associate of Applied Science degree in nursing. The recommendation from the Certification Advisory Council to the Commissioner and the recommendation to this committee yesterday was approval of that request with two requirements added to that. And those address two of the board's standards, standard number 3 and standard number 4, related to the size of the governing board and the people who sit on the governing board. The president of Galen Institute has committed to making the changes. He reported to the committee yesterday that they are seeking 2 additional members to their board. These board members would be national members. They would not specifically be from Texas. And in addition to that, he committed to stepping down from the board himself as serving as president, not being on the board, so that Galen would be in compliance with those 2 standards. So the staff recommendation to the board is the same as to the committee, which is adoption of the certificate of authority, approve it with the conditions that they follow through with the committed action related to the governing board and its makeup.
Discussion or comments? Okay, you've heard the recommendation on item 8G1. May I have a motion for its approval? Lori?
Actually, I want to read a motion because I want to make sure that we're not that we're separating out number 2, because in the motion it would otherwise say certificates of authority to grant degrees. So I would like to move that we adopt the committee's recommendation to the board relating to a request from Galen Health Institute in San Antonio for certificates of authority to grant a degree in Texas. Is that appropriate? Yes? Okay.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Items 8, H, I, J, and K were on the consent calendar. Item 8L is consideration of adopting the committee's recommendation to the board relating to the state plan for Perkins 4. We tabled this item at yesterday's special called meeting. Commissioner, you want to bring us up to date?
Yes. As you know, the State Board of Education voted, I believe at its November meeting, to change the allocation of funding from the Perkins program from a 60-40 split, 60% going to the K-12 sector and 40 going to the higher education sector, to a 70-30 split, to 70% going to public education. Since that time, the coordinating board and the governor's office and others have been involved in asking the State Board of Education to reconsider its decision. Last week at the State Board meeting, the issue didn't come out of the committee that considered it, so we are now talking with representatives at TEA to talk about how to proceed, and we hope that we will have a resolution of this issue by the April board meeting. But we're still negotiating and talking about what happened at the state board meeting last week and trying to understand the most appropriate way to proceed.
Okay. Any discussion? I move to table this item. I move to table this item. Do I have a second?
Second.
Can I make a motion?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Want to make sure? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 8M is consideration of adopting the committee's recommendation to the board relating to readoption with amendments pursuant to Section 2001.039 of the Government Code of Chapter 7 Rules private and out-of-state public post-secondary educational institutions operating in Texas. Members, you have some supplementary material in front of you. These review of rules are completed every 4 years as required by the section of the Texas Government Code cited in the agenda item title. Assistant Commissioner Glenda Barron and General Counsel Bill Franz will describe the review and make the recommendations.
Yes, thank you. As you will remember, Chapter 7 relates to the board's work with out-of-state private and public post-secondary institutions that choose to operate in Texas. And yesterday you received a packet of materials that had changes to the rules that are in your book based on comments that were received. We received comments from 15 entities or individuals, and with a review of those comments we proposed changes to those rules. Yesterday you had the opportunity to look at those changes that the staff's proposing. We had presented those to you with the understanding that we were going to bring back to you in April additional changes to Chapter 7. The changes that are made in the version that we are asking you to adopt today affect the two sections. There's an additional section that allows accrediting bodies an opportunity to apply to the board for recognition, and then there is a section related to an alternate method to receive a certificate of authority. The middle parts of Chapter 7, the existing parts, need to be revised in order to come into alignment and to be more user-friendly. They're very difficult in their current format for anyone to use, including the staff. So what we're asking you to do is to take the first step today in a series of revisions to Chapter 7. And so we ask that you approve with the amendments that are in that document that's in the supplemental materials. And you will see in those supplemental materials the changes we're asking you to make to the document that was in your agenda book are shown in red. And there are no changes from what you looked at yesterday. Did I leave anything out?
Okay. Bill, did you have anything to add?
No, I would simply point out once again that the list of commenters, as well as the gist of each comment, as well as the section commented upon, is also in your materials.
Is there any further discussion? Laurie?
Well, now I could give my duplication speech.
Go right ahead. Do you think you can improve on what I said?
Oh, no, not at all, Madam Chair, but I might expand on it. Now, one of my concerns that I think that this board handles very, very appropriately, but I think going into the future as we talk about closing the gaps, we need to maybe look at it differently, is when institutions are coming in from out of state, public or private, that we look at it in terms of the value and the quality that they add, and less on the duplication that they might be bringing to another part of the geography of the state. If we're going to talk about closing the gaps, there is not a place in the state of Texas where a new program is going to come in, physically come in to that city or municipality or whatever, and not duplicate something that might be nearby. And this applies, in my opinion, to existing universities in the state as well. So we need to look at competitiveness as a good thing, and we need to recognize the quality and the value that they bring and what they offer to the students. And as they expand, whether it's Tulane Executive MBA coming into Texas, or whether it's an existing university in the state of Texas adding a branch campus, we need to look at the competitiveness and the availability of facilities and access that they bring and the quality of their programs. And in addition, if we look on the, let's see, now I can't find where I marked it, but when they talk about tracking the students, and I talked about this yesterday in the committee meeting, we need to make sure that there's some sort of an accountability measure that we have so that we're looking at that each year so that they are, in fact, doing what they said they were going to do.
We'll make a commitment to you to be sure that we do that.
Thank you.
And to
Was that
provide-
good, Lynn?
That was excellent. And to provide data to us, that's going to be
Yes,
one of the...
that's one of the requirements.
Yes.
And the groups that we have talked to and the people who provided comment are absolutely on board with that.
Yeah. Great. Any other discussion? All right. Do I have a motion for approval? Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion, all opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks for all the hard work, too. Items 8N, O, P, Q, and R were on the consent calendar. Any comments? Next item is 8S, consideration of adopting the committee's recommendation to the board relating to new section 22.196 through 22022 of board rules concerning provisions for scholarships for students graduating in the top 10% of their high school class. As you know, this item was tabled at yesterday's special called meeting. Commissioner, would you like to make a comment?
Well, the issue of the top 10% scholarships is still being negotiated and discussed by staff here at the coordinating board and representatives of the governor's office, the lieutenant governor's office, and various legislative offices. So a resolution, a compromise hasn't been reached yet, so we're still in those deliberations.
Is there any further discussion? I make a motion to table this item.
Second.
Made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 8T was on the consent calendar. Any discussion? Mr. Chairman, this concludes the business of the 8th.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. That was a lot to cover today. We're going to take the next committee out of order. I talked to Chairman Bricker, and she has some Star Wars presentations. I understand they're not going to be here till 1. So what we'll do is save that for right after lunch. So what we're going to do at this point before lunch is I'll call on Chairman Joe Hinton of the Agency Operations Committee which is item 10 on our agenda, to present his report this morning. Chairman Hinton.
Bob, thank you very much. I would like to add to your comments and commend the governor and the appointments office for the recent selections of Bob and Brenda to our board. We spent a lot of time together yesterday, and they are indeed active participants. They were also starting blocks very quick, and we're very pleased with that. So, at the risk of embarrassing you before everybody in the world, I wanted to say that. This is going to be a very brief presentation, and I think you will realize why when you hear a little bit of the nature of what we are talking about here. On January the 14th, the commissioner wrote a letter to a number of people, the presidents of Texas public and independent institutions of higher education. The subject of that letter was financial aid and enrollment audits. I'm sure all of you that are still here have received information, if not this letter specifically, to each of you. Copies of that letter went to all the members of our board, went to John Keel, Texas State Auditor, to Ray Garcia, Texas Association of Community Colleges, Carol McDonald, Independent Colleges and the University of Texas, Risa Potter, Council of Public University Presidents and Chancellors, and to the Governor's Office. I'm sure, based on the feedback I've had, that has created quite a bit of interest out there as to what the heck happened and what caused that. Well, without going into a lot of detail, there are 2 or 3 things that got the attention of this board and of this committee. And once again, I want to elaborate, for obvious reasons, that you will recognize, but we have gone through a period here where we have had the media coverage of a variety of items that were very disconcerting, to say the least, such as the problems at TSU, the problems at Carleton, the problems that have arisen and been written about profusely here lately by the media at Galveston Community College, and so on. The point I'm going to make, and pretty much shut it off there, is that they got our attention. Let me assure you, they got our attention. It is riveted on the problem. The goal is going to be very simple. We are going to try very hard to work with the board and the staff and the college and universities to get ahead of the bubble, if you will, and be proactive and try to head the problems off before they occur. And hopefully we don't have to read about this stuff in the newspaper or watch TV and hear commentary that may be not even close to accurate, but yet it's going out over the public wavelengths. So that's about all I'm going to say about the whole meeting. We did get a lot of advice and counsel from Bill France, our attorney, and you have our attention. Bob, where'd you go? Oh, I have very little to say other than that.
Are you finished?
I'm done. I'm done.
Man, well, that was quick. Mark, can you do part of yours?
I will attempt it.
Okay.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Are we not doing agenda item 10B at this point?
You want to go through the agency ops items and then come back? Yeah.
I didn't know.
No, but which items are you referring to?
We didn't take any motion.
Okay.
Jeff. Good.
Bill's saying we do have a couple of action items
we do?
on 10B
Okay.
and 10C.
Oh, okay. Got it. Well, that just reiterates the point. We're riveted on to the point that we can hardly think about other things. Okay, item 10B. Okay, very good. That's the approval of the committee's recommendation to appoint 4 representatives to various advisory committees. And let's see, we discussed this yesterday in our normal course of the program, and I believe that we had a recommendation made at that point. And Dom, you're going to talk about it now, I believe.
That is correct, and I believe most, if not all of you were there, so I won't go into too much detail, but just for the record and for the folks in attendance, this recommendation is based on some legislation that was passed last session directing the coordinating board to appoint each year no less than 4 student representatives to various advisory committees. We started that process when we came to you back in July of last year, announcing that we'd be soliciting applicants for 3 committees: the financial aid, the undergraduate education, and the applied Texas committees. And that we also already had, before this legislation passed, a student serving on our graduate education advisory committee. That process began in the fall. We received close to 100 individual applications from around the state of Texas, representing more than 30 institutions, to include community colleges. And we went through a very rigorous process, looked at a number of criteria, and we're happy today to bring this to the board with a positive recommendation from the committee to appoint the following students. For our financial aid advisory committee, Ms. Kim Rahibi from Collin County Community College. For our undergraduate education advisory committee, Ms. Adriana Garcia from Laredo Community College. For our applied Texas advisory committee, Ms. Melissa Rodriguez from UT Austin. And we're asking that you reappoint. As I mentioned, we already had a student serving, so this would technically be a reappointment to our graduate education advisory committee, Ms. Bridget Walsh from Texas Women's University.
We also, you'll see in your packet, we're asking you to designate 3 alternates for the financial aid, undergraduate, and applied Texas advisory committees. In the event that one of the students that we are appointing today cannot serve, we will have someone that we can slide into that place without having to re-nominate, re-solicit, and bring for more action to this board. So that's the recommendation before you today, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any discussion?
The only thing I was going to suggest is that if at our next meeting or summer meeting, if they have the opportunity, since these are committee members, that we might invite them to our board meeting or some function that involves us so we can meet each of them, as well as the student board member that will be appointed later by the governor.
Absolutely, that's a great idea, Mr. Heldenfels, and we're actually planning on doing an orientation session. So maybe what we can do is bring them in for the July board meeting, do the orientation, and have them attend the board meeting. So we'll work with you on that.
Yes, sir, Commissioner.
No one will be surprised by this recommendation. Assuming that you approve these appointments, I suggest in the letter of appointment that we send to students that we remind them that their first responsibility is to do well in school, and that serving on these committees should not interfere with their normal progress towards the completion of their degrees.
Duly noted.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, by Fred, second by Lane. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 10E, and that's a list of contracts approved by the Commissioners since the last board meeting. And there's no action that's required, but there is a rather extensive list of all the contracts and so forth that have moved through, and we reviewed those in our meeting yesterday, so they will not be strange to you, even for those directors that were in attendance but not on the committee. They still.
Mr. Chairman, do we need to take action on 10C and 10D?
I don't have 10C and 10D in my book.
B, you just did.
No, C and D.
Right. I believe we did, yes.
The reallocation of Carl Perkins funds. Grant award.
Ken and I am prepared to speak to those if you'd like.
Okay, got it. I just turned 2 pages. Yeah, consideration approval, the committee's recommendation for authorizing the commissioner to reallocate unused fiscal year 07 Carl D. Perkins career and technical education funds for use in the program years of 2007 and 2008. And there is a recommendation for approval. Any discussion? Comments? Okay. Seconded by Lynn. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, now are we at 10D, everybody? Yeah. Okay. This is a recommendation for approval as well, and that's consideration of approving the committee's recommendations regarding a grant award under the Nursing, Allied Health, and other health-related education grant programs. Any comments, discussion? If not, do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Lynn? Seconded by Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item, that was the list of contracts that I spoke about earlier that the commissioner had authorized, and no action is required there.
So I have a question on that.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner, I'd like an update on the CalPass program. Is it a grant that we gave to, was it Alamo College, to track student data? And you don't have to do it now, but I think that it's critical when we get to participation and success and we're looking at the House Bill 1 updates that we know like what's going on in the state as far as new attempts to track student data. And David, I think you're working on that, right? Well, if we could, as a board, I think we'd like to have an update at some point so that we know how that's working and if there's another model. I know that, what's the name of that one, Triand? That there are other models that are...
Well, that's really a company that sells a product.
Right.
But in terms of what's happening in San Antonio, it is modeled after a program CalPass in California. I know all board members don't know about this, but briefly, essentially it's a model where local independent school districts, community colleges and universities sign agreements to share data. The Chancellor, Bruce Leslie, had to have lunch with Raymond, and he wasn't fully aware of the data we had, so he suggested Bruce call me, and we talked, and we said we could actually facilitate it. At the time, there was a request from Alamo Community College District for funding through the legislature. That didn't happen, but we committed to help them. We are essentially on our end in kind providing the opportunity to load the additional data onto our computers. We'll partition it so that it won't be available to anyone except for those participating institutions. We're working with CalPass to potentially to help design the reports that will go out. It will be slightly different from what happens in California, and that those reports will be under the umbrella of the college readiness standards. And what will happen at that point is teachers and faculty at ISD's Alamo Community College District and UT San Antonio will sit down and actually review the progress of students, say what's happening, where are the faults in the system. Do we see certain students are going on and they're all having trouble with chemistry, for example? Track back and see if they can identify where to fix that. So it's really sort of the ideal model of local cooperation, and it's voluntary. So it's really just getting started, but we think it's very promising. It's good timing with the creation of the P216 Council. We think in some ways it helps pilot local vertical teams, because in effect there will be vertical teams in place associated with this. We see many good things. We've mentioned it to George Granger when he visited us from the Houston Endowment there. He expressed some interest, so we may follow up with another pilot in Houston on top of the achieving the dreams and the other things that are going. So there's a foundation there already. So we see it as a pilot, something we'd be glad to facilitate across the state with anyone who wants to try it. But we think this is the type of thing that works really well when it comes from the ground up. It addresses FERPA issues in a way you can't really do in a state system, but you can with localized systems. So we think it's very promising, but it's still really just started. Just getting all the agreements signed, it was a real challenge, but it is going forward.
And you think there's a possibility we could bring it to scale, like to where we could have it statewide eventually, or does California have it statewide?
No, they do not.
Oh, they don't.
They don't. They have it much in this model where you have local agreements signed. If there were changes in FERPA, you could take it statewide, or if at some point you had...
You might see what FERPA is.
It's the state law which regulates what type of student information you can provide. The Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, I believe, is what the acronym stands for. So that's an ongoing concern. It's a reasonable concern in terms of how your private information gets out to other people. We're constantly working to get you guys more information than others while maintaining the rights to privacy within that act. And frankly, some aspects of it, even if there weren't a law, we would be addressing anyway because of privacy concerns. So we would be a little bit more flexible.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really important accomplishment that that we've been able to take this information of a program that's working and at least pilot it in one community. So I just think it's important that we all know about it.
And I think it's important, and it shows that ideas flow from the local level as well. I mean, this was something that was brought forward by the Chancellor at Alamo Community College District, and we can help facilitate that.
Right.
And would encourage people to know that where we can do that, we'd like to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, is that?
Okay, last item on the agenda is 10F, and it requires no action. It's pretty straightforward report on a program and facility decision made by the commissioner or assistant commissioner since the previous board meeting. Any comments or anything about that? If not, please.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, we will hold your report now until after, because, actually you're right on schedule to break. So we're going to go into executive session under Texas Government Code Section 551.074. The board will meet in closed session to discuss the personnel evaluation and proposed salary increase for Raymond Broadus, Commissioner of Higher Ed. We will reconvene at 1:10 in open meeting. Item 11 on our agenda is matters relating to the Committee on Participation and Success. I'd like to call on Ms. Chairman, Lori Bricker.
Did you want to do this first?
Absolutely, I would. Thank you very much. Yes. We will go back to item 7 on our agenda. At this time, I'd like to call on Ms. Bricker.
Thank you. I wanted to publicly say that the discussion that we have had about Commissioner Paredes has been most enlightening and very positive. And in light of that, and in light of the way that our board feels about our commissioner, I'd like to make the following recommendation in the form of a motion that I move that we raise the commissioner's salary to $180,000, and that is in light of all the discussion that we had prior to this open meeting.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Ms. Phillips and the rest of the board that I heard. Any discussion on that? The only thing that I'd like to say is most people know, certainly everybody in this audience knows, is that when we hired Raymond, we had no flexibility whatsoever, and he took the job anyway. And thank goodness for the wisdom of the legislature during the last session, they have given us a little bit of leeway, and I say a little bit, not a lot. But in light of that, Commissioner, we certainly appreciate your efforts, continuing effort, and certainly for the very first time, other than a few accolades, we would like to acknowledge in the form of raise.
Thank you.
So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign, motion carries.
Thank you.
Now, Madam Chairman, back to your item on the agenda relating to participation and success.
Thank you, Chairman Shepherd.
Thank you.
The Participation and Success Committee met on December 12th, and Dr. Nicole Hurd, who's the Executive Director of the National College Access Initiative College Advising Corps in North Carolina, gave a presentation on the possibilities for college advising corps in Texas. Other items discussed include a report from the Outreach and Success Advisory Committee, updates on the P16 Field Specialists, African American Males Project, Closing the Gaps for Latino Students Task Force, and a report on the College Affordability and Awareness Telethon happening February the 4th through the 13th. In addition, I'm pleased to report that Mayor Phil Hardberger with city, state, and university officials on Tuesday announced the formation of the P16 Plus Council of Greater Bexar County, which will focus on improving high school graduation rates. The ultimate goal is to better prepare young people for success in college or in the workplace. Business and educational leaders will collaborate on the council to develop a strong, sustainable workforce through academic preparation. I want to especially thank our colleague Elaine Mendoza for her leadership in San Antonio, and she's had a major role in putting together this P16 Plus Council, and I'd like to ask Elaine if you'd like to make some comments.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate your kind words. Actually, it was a whole group of us. I was co-chairing this formation committee that the mayor appointed with Charlie Cottrell from St. Mary's University, and we had a team of about 15 folks that worked on putting a model together for our P16 Council in Greater Bexar County that took best practices from across the state as well as the nation. Fortunately, we had Paul Ruiz, who with the Education Trust, on our formation committee, and he was invaluable. After we came up with the initial model, we took it to 6 different stakeholder groups around the community, got their buy-in, got their recommendations, their suggestions, incorporated into the model, and as Lori said on Tuesday, it was unveiled by the mayor, and already have Bartel Zachary with Zachary Corporation as our first chairperson for the next 2 years. So we're very, very excited. All we're doing with college readiness standards and so forth, perfect vehicle to make this happen at the local level. And as our presenter that won the prestigious award said this morning, take a look at local programs and disseminate best practices. That's one of the things that the council has already discussed and wants to pursue. And just on a side note, all these things that we are doing, I am really taking personally. I wish I could say it was altruistic, but my older daughter is the class of 20 and 12. My younger daughter is class of 20 and 15. So passing those standards today, if I'm still alive after 20 and 12, although I'll be off this board if y'all never hear from me again, it's because, well, they got to me.
Teenage girls will do that.
They will, and now that we upped the bar, here we go.
Is that their high school class year or their Texas A&M class year?
Not Texas A&M just yet. I'm getting, that's a high school class year.
That's what I thought she was referring to.
Yeah, I
That's
wish.
a whole nother gap.
Wish. Yeah. Anyway, so we're wholeheartedly trying to make a difference in San Antonio and transforming our community and our educational attainment for our citizens. So we're off and running. Thank you, Chairman.
Oh, absolutely. Well, congratulations, and we look forward to hearing more. Houston, P16 made a trip up to San Antonio when y'all first did your kickoff.
Yes, you did.
There was a whole group of us that drove up, and we really enjoyed meeting everyone, and we broke up into groups and had some really good dialogue. So
absolutely. We learned from y'all. The kickoff was designed to give a broader definition of P16 to the community. Of course, our commissioner was there at the time, Commissioner Neely. She was also a participant, and I was remiss in thanking our commissioner for making the trip all the way to San Antonio, for giving his remarks. We had the mayor, obviously, Mr. Zachary, give his remarks, and Commissioner Paredes gave his remarks, and it was just perfect with setting the sense of urgency for our community and really launching us forward as to why this needs to be done. So thank you, Commissioner, for being here for us.
Congratulations.
Glad to be there.
In addition, the Houston P16 Plus, Greater Houston P16 Plus is working really hard on a grant that we were participating in with the Houston Endowment and through the National College Access Network, working hard with all of the different players on the P16 Council. It's a $3.5 million grant, and we're part of the advisory group of that grant. It's kind of the next step of achieving the dream. It's called Preparing to Dream, and we've got stakeholders from 5 different school districts, and Houston A+ Challenge is kind of managing that. I know that Charles Cook Houston Community College is real instrumental in that, as well as all of the other stakeholders in the community. So we're very, very excited about that. Next, agenda item 9B is a presentation by the 2007 Texas Higher Education Star Award winners. On October the 30th, the 7th annual Star Award ceremony and the 1st annual State of Higher Education address was held in Houston, Texas. This year's winners were chosen from 15 finalists in a pool of 54 applicants. 4 outstanding higher education programs received the coveted Star Award, and I'd like to invite them up to the table, and we'll hear from all of them today. The representatives are here to give us a brief presentation of each winning program. And I also encourage everyone to kind of constantly and consistently look at the programs in your institutions all over the state and watch for opportunities to nominate these programs for Star Awards. In addition, we approved last year a category for P12. And that's real important, too, that anyone who is in a P12 situation or working collaboratively with early childhood or K-12 institutions, that would be a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to apply for that category. So congratulations to all of you again. And we'll start with the LULAC Parent-Child Program from Alamo Community College District, San Antonio College. Presenting is Ms. Carolina Trevino, Program Counselor.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
On behalf of the Alamo Community College and San Antonio College President Dr. Robert Ziegler and our department chair, Dr. Helen Vera, we would like to thank you for this award and the opportunity to come and share with you the details of this wonderful, unique program and partnership that is touching the lives and educating 2 generations. As the program counselor, I feel very privileged to be part of the educational journey and the success of our students. The Parent-Child Scholarship Program is about closing the gap. It's a partnership between the LULAC Parent-Child Council No. 2, the Alamo Community College Foundation, and the San Antonio College Women's Center. The LULAC Council No. 2 donates $25,000 annually to establish a scholarship endowment for the child of the program participant. The ACCD Foundation matches the donation by providing each parent a $1,000 scholarship for their educational expenses. The San Antonio College Women's Center monitors the program for each participant toward meeting their educational goals. The Parent-Child program is also about 1 generation at a time. The parents who complete their educational goal receive a 2-year paid tuition scholarship for their child to attend any ACCD college once they graduate from high school. To date, we have 74 participants. It shows there 72, but we now have 74 participants that have graduated or transferred to a 4-year institution, and now they have secured a scholarship for their child. The program seeks to ensure educational success of 2 generations, the parent and the child. The program also promotes literacy and family interaction. Reading and literacy programs are offered to participants each semester in collaboration with the public library. At the end of the first semester, we get together for a readathon. At that time, the library provides some books for the children. We also give them some more books. And then we ask the parent to commit to reading to their child on a daily basis. And also for their birthday, we also send them a birthday card and another book. We also celebrate success. At the end of each academic year, we have a recognition award ceremony, and the students with the higher GPAs are given a plaque, and also those that have graduated or have completed the program are also recognized. And then we ask several students to give their testimonials as an encouragement to the rest of the students. The Parent-Child Scholarship Program is also helping the parent and the child. The program participants are provided with quality, individualized, family-centered, wrapped-around supportive services. Students receive one-on-one academic counseling, and their progress is continuously monitored by the San Antonio College Women's Center. We also make it a point for each student to follow a degree plan so that they can move forward. The family-oriented activities are also offered to support a campus-friendly climate. Finally, the program is also about achieving the dream. All participants are first-time parents. Most of them are first-generation college students, low-income and single. Program participants are 5 times more likely to complete a certificate or associate degree compared to non-program participants. And 84% of these completers are Hispanic or African Americans. Our desire is that this program will be duplicated in this state and even in the nation. So we hope that this will become a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gardiner. Any comments?
I'm very proud, obviously, being from San Antonio, that this kind of program is alive and doing so much good for our community. We hope that we'll expand it to other campuses in the local area, but thank you. Thank you for your work, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you.
I'd like to echo that. This is one of those programs that if it could be replicated around the state, then those child scholarships could be exchanged between districts, and it could really multiply exponentially. And it's there's some programs that impress you from an academic or a cerebral standpoint, but this one also has the advantage of really touching the heart by targeting the family, not just one person. So I really commend what you've achieved.
Thank you very much.
Great comment. Any other comments? Next is the Developmental Education Initiatives Title V project from El Paso Community College. Presenting is Dr. Eduardo Servin, Director of the program.
My name is Eduardo Servin, and besides me being here, our Vice President of Instruction, Dennis Brown, is also here, Dr. Dennis Brown. And I believe our President was going to be here. I'm not sure if he made it. So our program, it was through a Title V program, and it's Developmental Education Initiative, and I'd like to thank the board and the chairman and the commissioner for inviting us here today. The objective of our program was to assist current and future students to succeed in this placement test, college placement test. The college placement test at El Paso Community College uses, along with UTEP, is the AccuPlacer exam. And the way the program works is we perform these functions, these workshops called placement test overviews, where we assess the skills of the students. We let them know ahead of time what the exam, the AccuPlacer, will look like. And so once we do this assessment, we plan a tutoring plan for them through a computer-assisted instruction. And we also have a case management system where the staff of Title V monitors the progress of each student. And, you know, on the photo there, we have a couple of our students in our labs. Next slide. Also, the students and the stakeholders that we're helping, and in that photo, stakeholders, and in that photo we have one of our staff members talking to one of our students. Initially, the program was helping future students, current students, especially those enrolled in developmental education. But the program became so successful that the scope widened, and we're now dealing with early college, high school students, as you guys can see there, high school students with dual credit, and the health occupations is also a critical population that we're starting to deal with because that's how they rank to get into these health occupations. So the scope is widened in terms of the people that we're starting to service now. Additionally, when the program began, we were just focused on one of the campuses, Valle Verde, which is our big campus. Now we're district-wide, and we're servicing all the students at all our campuses. Next slide. One of the outcomes that we found is in grade point average and also persistence. With grade point average, we've seen that student participants in our DEI program have shown a higher GPA than the general population at El Paso Community College, and those are the numbers that we have there. As far as persisting goes, we've also shown and we've also found that people that have participated in our program are doing much better in terms of retention. And the way we define persistence here is enrollment from fall to spring and from spring to fall. And so as you can see, comparing it to the general population of students at El Paso Community College, people that participate in the DEI program are doing much better. And finally, what we found also in terms of placement through this AccuPlacer is, for example, in the math column that you see there, 54% of the students that receive some form of intervention through our DEI program, for example, in math, would place out and have been placing out of 1, 2, or 3 developmental math courses. Additionally, in the reading portion, you would see that 70% of the students that receive our intervention in our program are placing out of 1, 2, or 3 reading classes. And the same thing, developmental classes, and the same thing would be for writing. Writing, we're doing a little bit better at 72% that are receiving our intervention are currently placing out of 1, 2, or 3 developmental education writing classes. So we are doing well in this program. One of the things that has happened since the award of this program is I have received, going to the comments of the chair, we have received a lot of phone calls in our program from other colleges throughout Texas asking us to share some of this information with them and some of the procedures that we use and all this, for best practices. So we are helping other schools, give them ideas and performing these types of things. And I'd like to thank also everybody for the invitation. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you very much. Comments?
I have a comment.
Bob?
I appreciate the fact that you waited until I became a board member for us to be able to share this information. Like Elaine, I mean, being from El Paso, although our responsibilities are statewide, it's still with a great deal of pride that we see the achievements that are happening around the state. And I wanted to personally echo my congratulations to you and Dr. Rhodes for the wonderful things that are happening at community college.
And it's an honor to be here among a couple of El Pasoans, including Dr. Paredes.
There's no truth whatever to the rumor that there's a connection between your presence here and the fact that we had two folks on the table from El Paso.
Other comments? Well, the phone calls that you're receiving are exactly the reason that we have the Star Awards. It's not only to honor all of you for your outstanding programs, but also so that they can be replicated. And that really is what makes it successful, so that they move from being pockets of excellence in your own communities to being really sustainable throughout the state. So congratulations.
Thank you.
The third winner is the Student Money Management Center from the University of North Texas. Presenting is Paul F. Goebel, Director of the Center.
Thank you. First and foremost, the center was realized through the vision of our Vice President of Student Development, Dr. Benita Jacobs. Through our advocacy and efforts, funding was secured to create the center and open its doors on October 1st of 2005. Today, the center has 4 primary service areas that we provide to students: information, education, application, and retention can sum up these services. For information, it is an unwritten and unspoken expectation of today's technologically savvy students that an institution or program will have a dynamic web presence. In the spring of 2006, special funding was secured and we were able to launch our website to students at that time. Today, students can download planning worksheets that they can personalize and apply to their own personal financial lives. They can also stay informed on money management issues relevant to today's college students. They can communicate directly with our staff members and learn more about our services through our website. Education outreach efforts. First and foremost, my entire team, from our full-time staff members to our student workers, we have one thing in common. We are educators. As such, we will provide a series of workshops on a variety of money management topics every semester. Since opening our doors, we have provided our students with more than 150 workshops on money management topics. This semester, we have already planned and scheduled more than 30 workshops and class presentations with members of our faculty. At our workshops, what we do is we break the theory down so it's relevant to our students. We also give them the tools so they can apply the theory and knowledge they gain through our workshops to their own personal lives. We're also very privileged to have a close working relationship with our orientation planning team. Since our first summer on campus, we have been at every orientation session and on every day. Some days we staff informational workshops. Other days we're presenting workshops only to parents. And the other days we partner with our financial aid office to provide a joint workshop to students and parents. Through our educational outreach efforts, we have reached more than 6,100 students since opening our doors. Application is realized through our personal financial consultations. This is the highest level of personalized service that we can provide to our students. It's sitting down and having a one-to-one conversation with them on any issues, questions, or concerns they may have. Oftentimes, we will focus on the strength of strengthening and developing strong budgeting skills. We'll also talk about debt management, taking the responsibility of acquiring that debt, but also showing the self-discipline to develop a plan to repay it. Also, we look at preparing the students not only to acknowledge greater success as students currently, but also to prepare for graduation and life beyond. Since opening our doors, we have served about 289 students through our consultative services. Conservatively, among that group, I would say on average, the level of debt, which is a combination of both personal and student loan, is about $10,000. We are very proud that we helped this small group of students develop repayment plans and taking the responsibility of addressing a debt load of $2.8 million. Our final service area is our retention loan program. This is the newest services that the center is able to provide to our students. We accepted management oversight of 2 established loan programs that were administered through our Division of Student Development this past February. The goal of our retention loan program is to help students address unanticipated expenses that are threatening their enrollment. At no time at the University of North Texas do we want a student leaving our university because they have a bill they simply cannot pay. These are non-credit based short-term loans. They cover non-tuition expenses. From this past semester's applications, most common expense were often books. Most importantly, what we have been able to do is to keep more than 4,000 students enrolled at our university through these loan programs. I invite everyone to learn more about our center and our services by visiting our website, and at any time that I can be of assistance in answering any questions or partnering with any other institution of higher education in this state, please do not hesitate to call upon me. And again, thank you for the invitation to provide a brief overview of our programs to you today.
Thank you very much. Great program. Comments, Commissioner?
Well, I'd just like to compliment you for recognizing that the primary reason that students drop out of school ultimately is not academic. It's typically either personal or financial, and that we assume we forget that a lot of students are 18, 19, 20 years old, and they don't have money management skills, and that really affects their educational outcomes. I'd be interested to know, and I know that you have to collect some more longitudinal data on this, but it would be interesting to see, to trace whether the students have gone through your program, to see if there's any differential in their educational outcomes and those of the student body as a whole, and see if there's some correlation between having a much stronger sense of how to manage finances really is a significant factor in retention.
And those efforts are currently in place, and we're working on it. What's been amazing is the students, we do a follow-up on the students who do attend our consultations. They leave with a plan. That's very important. And what we've seen is that we have had a 80% completion of the task by the set deadline that the students selected. And that personally for me blew me away, because I wouldn't expect the students would leave our office and still stay focused. But we're moving forward on that.
Ms. Mendoza? Congratulations. Obviously a wonderful, wonderful program. Financial literacy is such an issue even to enter and access as we've been dealing with. Have you tried to scope any of this down to maybe the high school level, such that you could go maybe to your feeder schools and start beginning the financial literacy process early on in the game?
Efforts again are being developed simply because we're looking at receiving special additional funding, looking at that need and having the opportunity. Currently, the total operations budget for my center is derived from our student services fee. And based on current enrollment, all of our services, with the exception of nominal processing fees for our loan programs, it contributes to about an annual donation per student of $6.50. And with that, we're maximizing. If they want value, come to my office. I'll show them value for their fees. But we also see the need to develop, especially the students coming into our university. And what we're looking at is developing grants and looking at different proposals.
It would be great to start that in the 9th grade level as they're thinking about, because that's where some of that barrier for financial literacy comes into play. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Holdenfeld?
I just have one question. How can we make this mandatory?
Are you speaking as a parent?
Darn right. This is a great program, and I would, again, we've touched on the heart, the mind, now the pocketbook, and this is something that every incoming freshman could benefit from at every institution in the state. It's a great program.
Other comments? Thank you. The fourth winner of the 2007 Star Award is the UT Telecampus from the University of Texas System. Presenting is Dr. Darcy W. Hardy, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs.
Thank you. First, let me say I have a daughter who's a junior at ET that I'm going to send over to UNT. She hasn't quite figured out the financial way to do things either.
So you're fine.
Really appreciate being here, and it's such an honor to receive this award. I will tell you that the staff at the telecampus, this has been the most exciting thing that has happened in a long time, and their excitement level, the celebration that went on for receiving this was just phenomenal. So on behalf of my staff and myself, I want to thank you again for giving us this honor. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the telecampus and why we're here. I do want to point out that I think this is an example of how a university system can really work together. We don't often see all of the campuses in a system work together like this, and we feel like the reason we are successful is because we have such a great relationship with all of the campuses in the UT system. So I want to point that out. Next slide. The telecampus was launched in 1998. We had 2 programs and we had about 189 enrollments. Very small starting off. We focused on service, and we focused on providing a centralized utility that would allow the system to save money and resources while we were targeting the state with online programs. We're nationally benchmarked for quality and for some of our programs, but I will tell you that receiving a state award has meant more to the staff even than some of the national awards that we've received. We are a service organization, and we are focused on serving students and serving faculty and serving our campuses. So if you look at the next slide, so far what we see every year is about 11,500 enrollments, and these are students who are admitted and taking courses across the University of Texas system, but they're taking them online through the telecampus. We have over 20 degree and certificate options, and there are several areas of study, but our largest are actually in business, education, and nursing and healthcare. And as a matter of fact, we're very excited about next fall we'll be launching UT Tyler's PhD in nursing completely online through the telecampus. So we're very excited about that. If you look at the next slide, these are our enrollments over time. As I mentioned, we started with about 189 enrollments. We now run about 11,500 annually. And I would like to also point out that as far as conserving state resources, we are doing that with a staff of 25 people, and we've been at 25 people for about 5 years. So we are serving a lot of students. We are serving about 350 to 400 faculty across the UT system by providing training, all of the support services, everything it takes to be successful online. So I think we're doing a pretty good job with the system and the state's resources. Another thing that we focus on, our marketing group really tries to focus on the diversity of our audience. And we put our marketing dollars into publications, online advertising, and so forth, trying to draw different audiences in. And as you can see, we have a nice representation. We have been pushing a little more toward the American Indian population. We're really trying to pull this population in because we feel like we're doing well relative to what the state looks like. But we want to keep pulling these in. So we are always looking at ways that we can increase the diversity of the population of the telecampus. Next slide. In the student participation area also, if you look at the age of the students, and I've been in distance education since the late 1980s, and it used to always be that the students were in their 30s and 40s. They were usually stay-at-home moms, people like that were taking the courses. We're seeing that change, and obviously we're seeing it change because of things online and the internet and the use of technology, people changing jobs, workforce training, etc. So now you can see that the age is actually dropping. You've got students that are at all ages. We're really proud of those 5 students who are over 61 that are enrolled in our programs. But we do find, there's a population of, I don't want to say older because I'm 49 as of today, so I'm starting to head in that direction. But we are seeing a lot of people who are wanting to get degrees, not for the purpose of work necessarily, but because they want to have that degree. They want to know that they've completed something. And doing it online fits their needs because I can guarantee you the folks that are in their 50s and 60s do not want to go sit in a campus taking classes with a group of freshmen that are 18 and 19 years old. No offense to those students because I have 2 of them. Let's go on. Also in the area of student success, we feel it's very important to surround the students and the faculty with all of the services that we think make online learning successful. And looking at the telecampus, and you can look at us and compare us to other organizations similar to ours that are working with multiple campuses. And the array of services that we provide is far exceeding what a lot of other organizations are providing. We do have the digital library services and the help desk. Those are sort of assumed in our field. But we also use a company for live online tutoring, and that's 24 hours a day, where students can have access to a tutor online. These tutors are master's level and above, and they're all over the world, so they can meet any time zone. We do provide plagiarism software detection software for our faculty. That's always very interesting. It's unfortunate for the students when they are busted plagiarizing over 50% of their paper. But by faculty having those tools and letting the students know that they have them, it is deterring a lot of students from even thinking about plagiarizing, just knowing it's there. We do provide a lot of training. We hold the hands of faculty all the way through the process of developing courses. None of our courses are going to be those that you go into the course and you look at and there's some PowerPoint slides and a test and maybe a textbook. These are highly interactive courses. They keep the students engaged, and our completion rates are running anywhere from 89% to 95%, which is very high for online learning. We also focus quite a bit on quality. Both the coordinating board and SACS are very familiar with our quality standards. As a matter of fact, when our campuses are going up for reaffirmation for accreditation with SACS, when they're talking about their online courses that they offer through the telecampus, almost always the team that is looking at those courses, if they're on a SACS visit, they see telecampus, they check off knowing that all of the services and all the quality is there and in place. We don't have anything to do with the content. They've got to figure that part out. But we are meeting principles of good practice. All of our courses are meeting those standards. We have oversight committees that are made up of faculty and deans who are looking at all of the programs, all of the content. We do a technical and editorial review of every single course so that when it is up and running, it is clean and all of the technology works. And as I mentioned, we do extensive faculty training. This is our current campaign, Live and E-Learn, and I welcome you to take a look at the telecampus and see what we're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Congratulations. Comments?
Laura, I'm really sorry she had to come today. We could have done this, on the internet.
There is value face-to-face. I'm not against it.
We understand it. We're happy that you're here, but I mean, those are amazing.
And happy birthday, by the way.
Yeah.
Commissioner?
I have, well, congratulations. You and I have talked a lot about telecampus, and it's very pleasing to see that y'all are doing so well. My question is very simple. Is the faculty training mandatory or good?
It's required.
Good.
It is.
And how extensive is it?
There's some that's done online. Then there are 2 days of face-to-face, and then there's video conferences and more online. So course development takes faculty about 9 months, and that's including all of the training that we give them at the time they need it as they're developing their courses. And it is mandatory, absolutely.
Other comments? Well, congratulations to all of you. One of the things that you all said consistently was that you were honored to receive this award, and that is exactly how we want everyone to feel, because it is a very prestigious award, and you all are so deserving because your programs they're collaborative, they're extensive, they're well thought out, they're successful, and hopefully they'll all be implemented throughout the state. And you're really making a difference in your communities, and thank you so much for all of the successes that you're bringing to your students.
We hope that all of you will be getting a lot more phone calls
Yes.
After today.
We ought to publish their
We will.
Yeah.
We will do that.
Contact information.
Yes.
Yes,
Good.
please do for the telecampus students.
Yes.
Put that out there anywhere you apply.
And I also want to thank Dr. Glenda Barron again for everything that she does for the Star Awards. I know that's something that's very special to her. And also to Dr. Mary Smith, who worked so hard on putting the entire conference together, in particular the Star Awards. So thank you to all of you. And also, Ms. Pavich had a comment about how difficult did you all feel it was to find the information about how to apply, and did you feel that was difficult, or did you already know how to apply? Any response?
This was my first experience. I did not find it that difficult.
And how did you find out about it?
Through my vice president's office.
Okay. Any others?
We knew about it. I mean, our communications group keeps up with where there are awards. So.
Any other comments? No? Thank you very much for being here. Okay, no action was required on that item. Agenda item 9C is update on college readiness and success initiatives. And we have the updates in our board agenda materials, and staff is available to respond to questions. Any questions that you all might have? Do you all have this? Everybody have it? Okay. Any comments? My only comment is the importance of urgency. I know that we have timelines, and thanks to Whit's suggestion when he chaired this committee, we also have a column for implementation issues, in other words, challenges that whether it's TEA or our agency or anyone else that's facing in the implementation side of it. And some of this looks like we're on target as far as our timelines. Other things like the electronic student records, I think it's not the fault of anyone. It's just it's just a big challenge to make sure that we're able to track data. And I think that it's very, very important that we not lose sight of the urgency. Any other comments? And is this on our website?
It is. It's on your board site as well as the coordinating board website.
Okay, because I've had a lot of people ask for this, and I wasn't able. Could you send us a link so we can find it?
Madam Chair, and this is a question I continue to ask, but I think about we're going to start on our LAR process, and I noticed as I read through, and I did read this, that it talks a lot about assessing, and I've asked this numerous times, but are our assessments going to line up with our LAR preparation in terms of going back and asking for HV1 money? Will we have those assessments before we have to consummate that LAR to know how we're going to line that up for all the programs?
Mr. Ryder, we are absolutely committed to moving in that direction. Unfortunately, some of the programs that we have, we will not have the final results in terms of the full evaluation at the point that we're putting together the LAR. But for many of the programs that we were able to start earlier on, that we were able to run last year, we will use all of that information as we're putting together what we have known as the House Bill 1 portion of the budget.
And will those assessments be presented to us, the results?
Yes, they will come through the committees. In fact, we will be reporting on summer bridge programs at the next meeting of the P&S committee.
Thank you.
We've added an evaluator to the staff in Susan Brown's area, and that has been a wonderful addition to the work that we're trying to do.
Other comments? I'm wondering if this would be a good opportunity to take the college readiness mandates maybe through the P16s across the state and make sure that they have a comfort level, because that's probably our best method of penetration, to make sure that everyone's getting that kind of information. And I know that I'm going to circulate it, although our P16's meeting today, but I'm going to circulate this to others and make sure that they get it. For example, one of the members of our P16 council in Houston is I think she's a vice chairman of the Harris County Department of Ed. And anytime we want anything to go to any of the Harris County public school districts, it's done. So this would be a good way to get that to her. So again, if you can send us the link.
We will, and we will also make sure you have the background information that is more fully explained in the materials that are actually in your agenda book, so that if somebody needs more detail on what college connections would be, they would have a way to find that information.
Okay.
So we'll send that as well.
Thank you.
Glenda, will you be working with Laura and Dom on identifying these implementation issues that perhaps could be addressed by legislation?
From that far right column of the, yes, we in fact, last week we received a document from the external relations area so that we can start making notes on things we want to bring forward, and we've got a number of items that we will include from that.
Great. Other questions? Okay, item 9D is on the consent calendar. Agenda item 9E is an update on uniform recruitment and retention strategy. Dr. Mark Lopez, Director of Recruitment and Retention, will give a brief report on the progress of fiscal year 2007 and fiscal year 2008 plans.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
First and foremost, I want to thank the work group that Glenda had designated for me to work specifically on the URRS, their hard work and their insights here at the coordinating board. So thank you all for your feedback and your hard work. I was charged to bring out the strongest initiatives so institutions can be sure to align their targets with the uniform recruitment and retention strategy. This has been a very difficult task. I know there has been several institutions who I've communicated with personally who have expressed feedback and concern for the current URRS. So what I would like to do is briefly get into the changes from the past 06-07 and 07-08 model, just to give you all an update. For the 06-07 academic year, institutions were submitting small scale programs that were very pricey, that were in essence piecemeal, institutional wide, that were not getting to a large audience of students on their individual campuses. This past July at the board meeting, it was changed for institutions to select one recruitment and one retention strategy for the 07-08 academic year. Institutions were to choose from the following recruitment strategies: a partnership with a high public need high school, institution that had 50% college going rates, a pre-college academic outreach initiative, as well as an application assistance program that would fit underneath the recruitment strategy. As far as retention was concerned, institutions were to select a financial aid strategy, a tutoring/mentoring strategy, an academic support program, as well as an institutional-wide academic advising by faculty or professionally trained staff. So those were the significant changes from the 06-07 reporting cycle to the 07-08 reporting cycle. One of those new requirements for the 07-08 reporting cycle were institutions were to submit proposals to identify what strategies they would select for their one recruitment and one retention initiatives. As of October 31st, institutions were to report to us what they were going to report on for the 07-08 academic cycle, as well as an evaluation design on November the 30th on how they plan to critically assess and evaluate these measures. Institutions were given the parameters to do so. Submit the number of students, program description, the funding source, as well as the program cost for their initiative. Ultimately getting to the question, how does this program contribute to the institution closing the gaps by 2015 participation and success targets? Under those parameters, the following institutions were selected as making progress towards they're closing the gaps by 2015, as you will see from your slides. Prairie View, University of Texas Pan Am, St. Philip's College, Tarrant County College, Temple College, and the University of Texas Medical Branch at Galveston, as well as the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center. These programs focused on a number of initiatives, as you can see, that utilized financial aid workshops, that utilized summer programs, pre-college preparatory programs. They served large-scale initiatives, as well as utilizing multiple approaches and not just selecting one of the following parameters. For instance, Prairie View A&M, their in-class program, their college application and financial aid assistant workshops, as well as their summer collegiate programs, as well as the University of Texas Pan American selected their high school to university program, as well as their sophomore advising and mentoring programs as their proposal for the 07-08 reporting cycle. So some next steps that we've identified as the work group. We are working closely with the evaluation team here at the coordinating board to design a tool for institutions to adopt to critically evaluate their current strategies, as well as they will be required to report on for the 07-08 academic year. In order to do so, they will focus on strategies to assess their goals and objectives for achieving their targets. As well as on February the 12th, institutions will chime into a webcast hosted here at the coordinating board, to address the challenges and strategies that were proposed from the institutions, as well as assist in developing effective recruitment retention strategies to develop large-scale programs and services. In addition, we will convene an expert advisory group to review submitted proposals and recommend changes. Also, in the near future, conduct site visits for the academic year, as well as request updated proposals for June the 1st from institutions. And lastly, incorporate into the coordinating board's accountability system. We have been working closely with folks to see how we can align their target numbers with the accountability system. We are currently in the works of placing a link on the accountability system so institutions can view the submitted URS strategies as well as their finalized reports. So we're working closely with them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lopez. Questions? No? Okay, thank you very much. Agenda item 9F is reports on the study on African American males and the Latina Students Higher Education Task Force. The written updates are in our agenda materials, and staff is available to respond to questions. Anybody have any comments or questions? Dr. Vera and I had sent, or maybe, I don't remember if I sent it to you or if I gave it to somebody, about the provision in Houston.
Yes.
Did you see that?
You passed it to me for Ron Brown, and I gave it to Ron, and then he reported back to me that he found that very useful, and he appreciated your thinking about including that in the information that he had.
Okay, good. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Agenda item 9G is an update on financial aid telethon. It has been renamed the College Affordability and Awareness Telethon 2008. Director of Marketing, Carlos Famat, will give us a brief update. Is Carlos here?
Well, he was here earlier. Plans are going forward. I'm not quite sure what happened. Plans are going forward. Well, you will remember that we are in partnership with Texas Guaranteed Student Loan Corporation on this particular project, and funds coming for this come from TG and from the College for All Texans Foundation. They are working with a video group who is coordinating the sites and getting the satellite uplink. We will actually be using the TG headquarters in Round Rock will be the location of the telethon, and we will be broadcasting from there. They, of course, have a huge phone bank that will be manned with volunteers that we are working with numerous contacts through our P16 councils and through our field specialists, getting volunteers to be here to work answering telephones those nights. We will have Spanish-speaking operators as well as those of us who unfortunately don't speak Spanish. We are anticipating good results the way we've had in the past 2 years that we've had this. We didn't have one this past year immediately, but we'd had them 2 years before. So we're looking forward to that. And here comes Carlos.
You did a good job of summarizing, so if there are any questions, then Carlos can...
If you need some specifics, he's the one who knows.
Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Chairman, that concludes today's business for the Committee on Participation and Success.
Thank you very much, Chairman Britt. We have worked awful hard this quarter, so it's only fair to give you a little bit of time back. Jerry Farrington would be extremely proud of us.
He would be.
To say the least. If there's no more business to come before the coordinating board today, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Made by Mr. Hinton, seconded by Ms. Ricker. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. We're adjourned.